What is up, everybody? We are live.
Hey,
Once again, it's on. Black Comic Lords in the building. Another week of Wakanda whiskey, Blerddom, and bourbon. I'm your host, Paul, my partner, Marc, and joining us is the estimable colleague, Mr. Brian Hawkins, writer extraordinaire. The new, I shouldn't say new because you've been in the business for a minute, but the esteemed Afro-Gothic writer.
The accolades are crazy. I appreciate that. Like, that's wild to me. Afro-Gothic. We are definitely have to talk about that.
I saw that on Twitter somewhere, Afro-Gothic.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, you, Rodney Barnes, that's y'all are starting the whole trend right now.
You introduced me to that hashtag, and for you to even put my name behind Rodney Barnes, I'm completely honored and humbled. That's my man.
Sir, with this
Rodney
book,
Barnes, I'm completely humbled. Thank you.
With this book, and for y'all don't know, Brian is the writer of The Vineyard. We're just gonna jump right into it. Okay? I ain't even trying to front. I was impressed. And I'm not just blowing sunshine up your ass on this one.
Oh wow!
I was genuinely impressed with this book.
Wow.
I have to admit, I bought it because you're my boy.
Appreciate it.
And I was like, I gotta support. I read the premise, initial premise. I was like, I don't know if this is really gonna be my thing. I'm a capes and cows guy for the most part. I mean, outside of Rodney Barnes stuff with Philadelphia, Anita Hawes, I'm really just kind of a capes and cows guy. I don't really stray out of my lane that much. But this right here, first of all, you told a complete story in one issue.
Oh,
like a complete opening story. You somehow made it satisfying, but also by the time you get to the end, I can't wait for the next issue.
One thing about this book is there's a lot of content in this one.
There's a lot of content. How many pages is this book?
Yeah. There's a lot of panels, there are a lot of pages, there are a lot of words.
32 maybe? Like,
okay, so that's where I'm getting that Silver Age, Bronze Age vibe from, where you had more than 22 pages in the book.
All right, for those people who don't know, Vineyard is a book about wine. It's about a family that has a winery. What is the family name, Brian?
The Vines.
So that their name are the Vines.
The Vines.
Okay, there is a husband, a father, and 2 adult children. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to say anything to spoil it, but there are things that the family have to do. There is a spiritual element behind the success of the family that is something that you would not necessarily expect, especially from a Black family. So the first question that I have for you, B, is if this is going to be a spoiler, then forgo answering. Okay. But how did this Black family, because this is a book about a Black family, how did this Black family get connected to that spiritual element that's connected in this book without divulging too much?
That's a very great question, and it lies within actually the realm of reality. How does the Black family, the all-encompassing group of Black people, get brought into the family of fraternities and sororities? Greek.
I mean, I can answer that one, being a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. So,
okay.
I'm not going to go into the whole Pan-Hellenic Council type things. And, it has a very practical standpoint. But with this book, with this story, first off, where did the inspiration come from for you as a writer? And B, in the book, how did these characters get involved with something that isn't necessarily on these shores that we call North America?
Okay, so
yeah, because real talk, as I was reading it, I was really trying to figure out where does Brian come up with this stuff. So what was the inspiration for this?
So to kind of go back, like a lot of Greek influence actually comes from the Kemetic, the ancient Egypt anyway. and what you end up having is a derivative of what originally was the original man anyhow. And here in the Western Hemisphere, we're more comfortable, we're more knowledgeable of Greek and Hellenism and that variation of the mythos. So with this story, it really was, it started with the idea of wine, and I wanted to tell a story that was really based around wine. And I've always had a fascination with an affinity towards Greek mythology, its origins and etc. And I thought about how, like, there are not a lot of great stories told about, the god of wine, Dionysus. It's not a whole lot of, especially not when it comes to comic book storytelling. So the seed of thought with the wine and visuals of that, and the ambiance of that, and the nuances, along with bringing in the mythos of the god of wine, but taking it in a very dark route, like going back to demonic dread and the dark elements, the old gods. What would that look like? And to bring in this family that, when you look at them, you have this black man, you have this Indian woman, and
real quick, tell everybody who the family members are.
You have the husband, patriarch of the family, is Didakai Vines. The wife, the matriarch, is Maranatha Vines. Their oldest child, which is a girl, a female, their daughter, Sophia Vines, and their son, who is a few years younger than Sophia, Adonis Vines. So when you bring in this really black family, Maranatha is Indian, but when you bring in this black family, this family of color, with this this Greek mythos, I believe there's this interesting dynamic, this interesting juxtaposition of who they are, how they became to be, and what they look like in this modern world where they're worshiping and they're living in this kind of successful revelry of this old god. It's an interesting, I think, very boxed in world, and it's a very boxed in world.
So I'm assuming that we will learn in future issues how the Vine family, the father, got connected to the Greek god Dionysus.
It will go deeper into that. He begins to kind of explain it, in his talks with his son, of what his belief is. And it will go deeper into what his belief is and how that came to be. If we're looking for a 100% full origin story of how he began to believe, I'm not sure what page is on, but he actually explains it in issue 1 of what led him to believe, and it really becomes this kind of rhetoric about religion and about belief. And he actually, he goes at Christianity, he goes at Islam, and he goes at all the other religions to say, here's what they're trying to capture, but I've captured it right here, because here's what you understand about what the earth is and who I am to the earth and how we're connected to the gods.
This is set in California?
No, this is set in Virginia.
Virginia, okay.
Yeah, Virginia wine country.
Okay. Is that really a thing, or you just made that up?
No, it's 100% a thing. Yeah, Shenandoah Island. And the cool thing about it is, like, seriously, with every script that I send into Aftershock, send to the editors, I would send a picture of the wine that I was drinking while writing the script. And I made sure I went out and I bought, like, Virginia wines for every issue that I wrote. And I would send a picture with each script.
So how many issues will this be? Will this be an ongoing, or is this going to be a limited series?
So it's a limited series for right now.
Okay, how many issues?
It's 4 issues.
4. Oh, hell.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
It's 4 issues. You're going to get a complete story. You're going to feel satisfied. You're going to feel satisfied, but of course, I leave room for more, and the brain's always working, and there's always plans. But it's a yes. Who is the publisher?
Richard Wright's asking if its publisher is Aftershock. Yes, Richard, it's Aftershock.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, what was the basis for the Vine family? Was there a real life basis for the Vine family, or this just came from the brilliant mind of Brian Hawkins?
Can I say the brilliant mind of Brian Hawkins?
Well, no, you can't. I can't.
You can't say it.
I can.
We can say it.
Yeah.
There's not a real life basis, really. I am, and you guys can probably tell, like even from Black Cotton, I like telling stories about families, and I like to tell stories about relationships. I think the human condition is best seen through our relationships, and with this story, I felt like that family dynamic and the idea of tradition, the idea of religion, the idea of belief being pushed on you worked best. Indoctrinated. It works best, and you get to see different aspects within those roles, those different roles that we all play, like father, husband, wife, mother, son, sibling. So you get to see that dynamic and how it plays out within the structure, because because the characters are tethered to each other in so many different ways, and it's all familiar and it's all intimate.
Right.
And that's also the thing with the father's relationship with the god of wine. It's very intimate, and that's then passed on.
So it started with the dad. He didn't inherit it from somebody else. It started with him. Yes.
It started with dad. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes, he is the pioneer.
Let me say this: 2 things. Number one, I knew that the son was going to do what he did, and number 2, that white chick is fine. Whoever the artist is, with the artist's name, he drew her perfectly. She is
Sammy Cavella. Yo, shout out to the art team: Sammy Cavella, Jason Wordy, Taylor Esposito, the whole editorial staff. Just shout out to them.
Right.
Sammy, let me tell you, when I got the first layouts from Sammy, and I literally went through the art without the script next to me, and I just read the art as if it was a script, and it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. Sammy completely brought this to life.
Yeah.
Jason completely just added his magic and his touch to it with the colors, setting the mood, the atmosphere, and Taylor's style on the lettering. I couldn't have asked for a better creative team.
So obviously this comes from your mind.
Mm-hmm.
As the writer and creator, what do you tell to the artist how you want these people to look? How does that process work?
So with this, I actually created a character sheet.
Tell us what that is.
So I created a character sheet where I went through in kind of short summary, a short description of what I thought each character would look like, each of the main characters.
Right.
I even attached photos to to what I thought they could possibly resemble, and then within the script, I also added, and this kind of comes from like my old screenwriting days, where you embed the description of the characters within the script. I added like a short description within the reading of the script as well.
Right.
So where I'm not assuming full control of what is and how they look, but I'm offering a visual suggestion so that when they're creating the art, when they're bringing it to life, they have a starting point.
Right. Because I'm gonna tell you,
the artwork
is
is absolutely fantastic, man.
The artwork looks like O.J. Simpson to me. No, seriously. I mean, look at it. I can't tell what page this is, but he reminds me of O.J. Simpson, and he looks like a very, very fit brother. You know what I'm saying? Like he was a football player or something.
I had one criticism about the scene with the son and the white lady.
Mm-hmm.
I think most guys in that position probably would have gone a little further along before executing the act that he did.
Respect. Wait till issue 2.
And that's why you my man.
This is good. This is really good. You know, this somewhat reminds me, like Paul said a moment ago, I personally have never been into the horror genre of comic books. Like Paul, I'm into the capes and cows, superhero type stuff. Over the past 2-3 years, I've expanded my horizon, so to speak, into different types of things. Specifically horror. There's a book called Maw, M-A-W, Maw. And I don't remember what company that comes from, but there is a supernatural element to that book that reminded me of Vineyard. And I'm gonna be quite frank, full disclosure. The only reason why I picked up Maw, because those are my initials. M-A-W are my initials for my name. That's the only reason why I got issue 1. But I read it and I actually enjoyed it. And then there's another horror book called Bunny Mask. That is by Paul Tobin?
Paul Tobin, I think is how it's pronounced. I could be wrong.
Paul Tobin. Yeah. If you haven't read that, it's very, very good. It's on his second volume, I want to say, because there was a 4 or 5 issue limited series, volume 1, and now he's on his second one, and that's pretty good. But I mentioned that because that Maw and now your book and Rodney Barnes' vampire books are good reading if you want to venture out away from the normal standard superhero cape and cow type fare. So it was good, man. So what else are you reading as a
well, hold on before we get there, I just wanted to give him the opportunity to share, like, what can your readers expect, because I know quite a few people that have said they've either read it or they plan on reading it. So tell the readers what they can expect in this series.
So the elevator pitch,
without any spoilers, obviously.
No, all right. So the elevator pitch, it's a mythological. We're calling it a mythological Dionysian horror series that is centered around a family divines, and they are in service, indebted to their patron god of wine, Dionysus, and he requires from them 4 sacrificial killings per year. And the story hinges upon, at the beginning, the father, who is usually the one who carries out the duties of the sacrificial killings.
Hey, not too much, dude.
Okay.
No, seriously, not too much.
Well, so it's family values colliding with otherworldly obligations.
Speaking of the Greek god, there may be, as a kid, before the internet and with only 3 channels before cable, I used to have the World Book Encyclopedia. And one of my things was reading about Greek and Roman mythology. So for those who don't know, in encyclopedias, you had letters A through Z, and then you would read a subject that was letter A, blah, blah, blah. I would always read about, say, Zeus, and then it would say, see also Hercules or Hera or whoever. For those who aren't into Greek mythology the way that I am and you are, explain who Dionysus is.
The god of wine, fertility, of revelry,
wine, women, and song.
There you go. He's the party god, and so, like, what I wanted to do, like I said earlier, was take this idea of this party god and take it to the old world and the dark and brooding mythos of him. Is that, there are actually Dionysian religious cults that they worship, and they have rituals that go and play out through a certain way, even to today, that are not part of that kind of playful idea of who Dionysus is. So,
and for those who don't know, if I'm not mistaken, he is a sibling to Zeus, Poseidon, Hera, and who's the god? Pluto.
Right.
Yeah, he's their brother. And Hephaestus, he is a brother to all of them.
Yeah.
and his like Brian just said, his realm or expertise is fertility and wine. So
very, very tethered to the earth. There's a huge connection between that and Gaia, and even in pages of this, Dedekai mentions that connection to the earth.
Where did you come up with the character names? Because those are some weird names, bro.
So each name actually tells a story. Like it actually tells us. It actually tells their story within this story. Dedekai, comes from the idea of law. The doctrine, the religious law. There's actually a biblical Christian, I should say Christian Neo-Judeo book, the Dedekai. So his name is like the law, and Maranatha is about it's praise and it's about being open, and it's about life, and Adonis, of course, strength, right? And Sophia is wisdom. And so each member's name kind of represents their standing in the family, and also kind of informs their story.
You had studied theology at one point in your life, didn't you, Ryan?
Yeah, I've been to theology school. I've been to seminary. I've been to theology school.
You were going to be a preacher?
Never was going to be a preacher. What happened was, in my Christian days, I was, I've always had a thirst for knowledge, and not to be cliche, and I wanted to know what the people who were preaching to me knew, and I'm like, well, how best to know than to actually go study where they should have gone to study? So I took upon myself seminary and graduate classes for theology. And I went to Liberty, very Christian school.
Wait. Is that what's my man's name?
Jerry
Falwell. That was Jerry Falwell School in South Carolina.
Yeah. No, in Lynchburg, Virginia.
Okay.
And so what ended up happening there is I opened, and I have so many of the books right now, like this one right here, and I got them all. Church history. You open this up and you begin to read.
A religious school in a town called Lynchburg.
There you go. Exactly. The irony,
I
right?
got no further comment.
And it's actually very fitting, believe it or not. And you open this up, you start to read, and you have to write papers. And when I began to do that, what ended up happening was I had more questions. And more questions lead, at least for me, to me seeking. And so I'm Googling, I'm researching, I'm going, and it just throws me into all these different paths. And I end up having a lot more questions than answers. And then what I come to understand is that answers are really incomplete, and that the best thing that you can get is understanding. And I started to connect the dots about what religion really is and what faith really is. And then it takes you out of what religion is, and you begin to, in my opinion, now you become this your own person. You become the individual. Now, to counter that, easily I could have just said, well, no, the Bible says this, and so I then go to my faith, and then you dispense rationality and you dispense logic.
Your brain, basically. Bottom line, use your brain.
Exactly. So, and so here I am. And, on top of that, I was fortunate to, after I finished, I ended up having 2 extra degrees so I could teach community college. So I taught history of religion for like 4 years at a community college.
So what are your degrees in? What degrees do you have?
I have a BA in English. I have a master's in education. I have a master's in divinity and a master's in theology.
Oh, you a man of letters. Look at you. You kind of smart.
You kind of smart.
You know things, huh?
You know a couple things.
I'm just going through life, just learning.
So, well, everyone, again, this is we're here, Black Comic Lords, with the great writer Brian Hawkins,
Appreciate it.
who has his book out, The Vineyard. Check it out. It's in stores today. And it's a great book, man. It's dope. Support the brother. He's doing his thing.
So what
We're
else?
gonna take a brief
collector, what else are you
commercial.
reading?
Hold on. We're going to take a brief commercial before we head on to our reads of the week.
Commercial.
Fight the criminal, chase the bad guys, save the world, fly to the sky. Half kid, I'm amazing. Okay, stand shot, can face it. Yeah, 1-0, then use that. Good against evil, get trapped. In my eyes, I got the power. Villains run from the static shower. Superhero, static shot. Superhero, static shot. Criminals, get twisted. It's superhero gifted. Bell ring, back in school. Nobody know what I do. Okay, superhero, static shot. Superhero, static.
That's a good commercial right there.
That was not the commercial.
That's a Static Shock commercial.
That
Wasn't the commercial.
Paid by the sponsors of.
That was kind of our semi-recap of our milestone comic book roundtable series. Check it out every Sunday. We've been doing it for the last few weeks. This upcoming week, we have Icon, the milestone book Icon. We're going to talk about it at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, PM, this Sunday. So, reads of the week. What y'all reading?
Who's going first?
Avengers 1 million.
All right, let's talk about that.
Well, hold on. Let me just go through everything real quick. Avengers
Okay.
1 million. Black Adam, written by the great Christopher Priest.
Oh, he's the great now. Okay.
Well, he is great, but I am not
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
impressed
We'll
with
talk
some
about
of the
it.
stuff that he's been doing recently. Rodney Barnes, Nita Hawes, love it.
Oh, that's in my pool box. I'm supposed to go today. I didn't
Trash.
Just put just light that on fire.
This
Light
is
it on
trash.
go.
fire.
Did you say trash?
Do it on live television.
Listen, you have a degree in English. TRA.
You said trash.
Ash.
Trash. This is
Wow.
absolute trash.
Garbage, I believe, is the French word.
Blood Syndicate, which I'm really, really enjoying.
Oh, that was a good issue, man. Look,
Really
that
enjoyed
book
it.
right there,
Really enjoying
that was a really good damn book.
And then the final thing is Prodigy, which I'm really, really, really enjoying. And quite frankly, I want to start with Prodigy.
I'm writing it down because
All
I
right,
haven't
check
got on
it.
Prodigy yet.
A couple of years ago for my birthday, my boy Paul, who I've known for going on 30 years, bought me a trade paperback of Prodigy. I guess there were several issues that had been released that I'd never heard of, never read it, whatever. So I got the trade paperback. I'm reading it, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I couldn't finish it because it was absolute ridiculous. The main protagonist is this guy who is a super genius, and he knows everything about everything. Any field of discipline, be it psychology, forensics, nuclear science, this dude knows everything about everything.
Basically, Sherlock Holmes and MacGyver had a baby with Bruce Lee.
It's more than that, with Reed Richards and Tony Stark and Hank Pym combined. It's just his mind is it's ridiculous.
No black man should be that smart, is what Marc
But
is saying.
no. Nobody is this smart. It has nothing to do with race. And where I stopped at the book was he the main guy. What's his name? Crane, Dr. Crane. I can't remember the character's main name, but anyway, he was fighting some bad guys. He just met these guys, right? Just met them, and he's fighting them. And he was like, "Yeah, your father left you when you were 10, and used to wet the bed, and just." It was just absolutely right. The look that Brian just had, I wish we could screenshot that. It was just stupid, right? I'm like, this is just garbage. So anyway, because it is a black character, when it popped back up on the shelves, I'm like, okay, I'll give it another shot. I read it. They've tamped that down, and it is really good.
Okay.
Prodigy, the Icarus Society, is good. Basically, the guy, he's still smart, but he's going up against his Moriarty. Paul mentioned mentioned Sherlock Holmes a moment ago. The guy is his Moriarty to his Sherlock Holmes. It is a very interesting read. I'm not going to say more than that about it, but if you have not picked up Prodigy, the Icarus Society, It is very good. Just imagine the Illuminati, so to speak. There is a cabal of extremely wealthy, extremely intelligent individuals out there who are trying to attain not wealth anymore, but knowledge and power. And so they compete against each other for items and artifacts that are out there, and ancient artifacts that are out there in the world. And Dr. Crane has been tasked to try to come into possession of some things for somebody else. It's a very good read, and I would encourage you to pick up Prodigy: The Icarus Society.
I got it down.
Yeah. Have you been reading, Paul, or no?
I've ordered it. I have not read it yet.
Okay. Well, I highly, that's one that I recommend. What about you, Brian? What else?
All right, so for me, I'm a few weeks behind. My pull list is waiting for me. But what I'm trying to catch up on is I have several issues of Noctera, starting with 7 that I'm trying to catch up on.
Noctera's good, right?
It is good. It's good. Like, I like the dystopian horror adventure kind of element to it. I love The Walking Dead, so it gives me that kind of feel for it. I started AWA with the Primos. It's like a their superhero series. I've heard good things about it. It's issue 1. I haven't started it yet. I have this one right here that was slipped into my pull. That's by Opus. I haven't heard of it, but it's Disturbed Dark Messiah.
I saw that today. When I went up to get my books today, I saw that. So you haven't read it? You don't know about it?
I have not read it yet. It's all stuff that I have to read. I have my Calculus Man from Aftershock that I have to get into.
That one just got optioned.
Yeah. Optioned by Hulu. Yep.
What's it called again?
The Calculus Man by Paul Tobin. The same guy
really?
who wrote.
Okay.
Yeah. That was optioned before issue 1 even came out, I think.
Yeah.
I have Firepower, which I'm continuing.
Robert
I have
Kirkman.
Once and Future, I'm continuing.
You know what? I've been interested in Once and Future, but it's like on issue like 23 to 24 or something that, right?
It's coming to an end. And I'm kind of glad it's coming to an end. I've liked it for a while. It's just so, like, you can feel that it's coming to an end though. Like, it's right there for it. So it's good though. It's high fantasy.
In the vein of Nottingham or something else?
In a way of, it's kind of like Nottingham, where they're turning fables and history on its head a little bit, but it's more ghostly, more out there. Like, Nottingham has this kind of human element to it, where Once and Future has more of a otherworldly kind of element to it as well. It deals heavily with like literary fiction and how that fiction was changed and comes to life too. Department of Truth, I'm still continuing with. I got my Philadelphia.
Of course.
And I got my AWA Hit Me. I've heard a lot about Hit Me, and I've heard Hit Me is so good. So a few weeks ago, when I made it out to my LCS, I picked this up as well. Not to mention, I'm reading a couple horror graphic novels. Joe Hill. And
I've heard of Joe Hill. I think Richard talked about that one.
Joe Hill, the son of Stephen King. He has, his whole
in real life.
Yeah. He has his whole comic imprint that's done through the DC Black Label, but he also have another comic deal with Image as well. And Midnight Rose by Jim Starlin. Those are my books for right now. I'm playing catch up. It's been crazy, so I'm trying to get those through these and then grab my pull, which hopefully has my Nita Hawk in it. I'm excited about that.
I don't know how people with a full-time job is supposed to get through stacks of these in a week before the next stack comes.
It's impossible.
That's
also
the truth.
has like 2,000 books that he's yet to read, I'd imagine.
That is probably less than accurate. It's probably more like $5,000.
That's ridiculous.
It's. But here's the deal. I mean, we're in a very, some people say, the golden age of storytelling, like even with TV and film. But like, there's a lot of great comics out there that, you know, they're just really good stories, and there's really great art, and you know, the story in the art, and the stories are being told in such magnificent ways, and you just can't. It's too many for you to get all of them at once. You know, something's going to slip through the cracks. It's impossible for it not to.
I'm going to go through some of the books that I got.
Go through the.
I haven't read them all yet. We got After the Rain, John Jennings' book.
Oh.
He wrote this. Let's see. Some other pickups. This is just a random one for you, Mark. Wakanda Whiskey. This is New Avengers #1. This
the old one, right?
This is the Steve cover.
Yeah,
I've wanted this cover for years.
I don't have that necessarily. I don't have that cover, that variant cover, but yeah.
I love this cover. First of all, New Avengers #1 is a Black Panther book. Like any of his other books, this is literally a Black Panther and the Avengers book. And I said it just like that, Black Panther, the Avengers. And I love the imagery of him holding a world in his hand with the Avengers Illuminati behind him, with the multiverse of worlds behind him. This
was written by
Jonathan Hickman.
Oh, wow.
Jonathan Hickman wrote this entire storyline for the incursions and the multiverse, which is where the future of the MCU is going.
And that the incursions are part of what was used in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Correct. So
Hickman is one of the best writers out there now.
Hickman wrote the entire storyline over 3 different series. He wrote it in this book, New Avengers. He wrote it in the main Avengers title. He wrote it in 4. He wrote it in a book called Infinity. When I say wrote, he might have been the individual writer, but he's the overall plot, overseer. And then there was another series, Secret Wars, which Marvel has announced is going to be one of its films.
Did he do Ultimate Avengers?
You
can talk, and I'll tell you in a second.
I think that was Bendis. But, this particular issue, this cover is one I've wanted for a long time, and I finally got. So I'm happy.
For those who don't know, let me just interject real quick. Hold that cover back up, please. For those who don't know, in Marvel Comics, the Illuminati basically are the leaders of several different Marvel superhero teams or groups who come together to face and deal with threats that don't involve their individual teams. For example, you have Mr. Fantastic of the Fantastic Four. You have Black Bolt from the Inhumans. You have Tony Stark, who at the time I think was the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. You have Doctor Strange, who is his own unto himself. Captain America was a member for a very brief period of time. Namor, who is the king of Atlantis. And T'Challa, who is the king, or was the king, of Wakanda.
Still the king.
Whenever something happened that they don't want to get their teams involved, they come together and deal with it themselves. It's like the presidents of the HBCUs or the presidents of the Pan-Hellenic Council coming together without involving the Deltas, the AKAs, or whatever, and they deal with it themselves. And there were some good stories that Hickman told.
Yeah. So highly recommend those series for those of you, especially those people who are in the spec. Those 4 series overseen by Jonathan Hickman: New Avengers, Infinity, and Secret Wars. And as we get closer to those times, I'll go into more detail about those books.
Real quick, Rick Remender is the one who wrote Ultimate Avengers.
Right. Okay.
I don't know who that is.
He's a great writer as well. He's a
Daily
great sci-fi writer.
Yeah.
He's a great sci-fi writer. Books I really loved this week, or the last couple weeks, because I'm usually about a week behind everybody because I get my books shipped. Mark had mentioned this. This is Blood Syndicate number was this 3 or 4? Number 4.
I don't have that cover.
This
That's
book
pretty
is
cover.
fire.
Gorgeous cover.
This
that's a
book
very nice
was
cover.
fire. That's Aqua Maria on the cover. I think I got all 3 covers. When it comes to milestone books, I get all the covers.
This is my
Marc
cover.
is holding up the one with Iron Butterfly, who has a brief appearance in the book. Not enough is being said about what Jeffrey Thorne has done with Blood Syndicate. Brian, you appreciate this as a writer. It's hard to do a reboot of a series in which you're trying to pay homage to the original material, but you also want to make it fresh and new and give people surprises that they hadn't seen before, and also bring in a new generation of readers.
Yeah.
You know, Blood Syndicate came out when I was young. I'm an old dude. So Jeffrey Thorne has managed to be able to balance that, where he has stuff in there that me as an original milestone guy from day one can appreciate, but someone who's picking up the book for the first time would also appreciate that book from a fresh perspective.
I did not read
anything.
I did not read anything milestone because as a younger person, I didn't recognize the significance of how important milestone was when it first dropped. Didn't read Static. I may have had 1 or 2 hardware, whatever, but I definitely didn't read Blood Syndicate at the time. Coming into it fresh, I'm really loving the story that Jeffrey Thorne has created around these characters who I have no knowledge of prior to reading these books. And I'm on record as saying, and I'll say it again now, that Jeffrey Thorne should be writing the Black Panther title. The current Black Panther title by John Ridley.
We're gonna talk about that in a sec. When we get to the
I just wanted to say again, Black Panther is trash.
Hey, I actually the last issue, I think it was 6 maybe.
Hold up. We're gonna get there. That's its own section.
Milestone. Let me say about Milestone. I'm kind of in the same boat with you, Mark, where I know of Milestone more in my adult life, where I went back and I read the older material before the new. Now, I didn't read all of it, obviously, but I went back and I read the older material before the new came. When I began to dive deeper, when I was reintroduced in my more adult life to comics, and it took more of an independent slate. You know, I got introduced to Dwayne McDuffie and Dennis Cowan, who they are and who Milestone was, and I really became hugely fascinated with that, with what they did. And so I dove into what they were doing, Icon and Rocket and so forth and so on. And so, you know, in my adult mind, I'm looking at what was, and I'm looking at what is now, and I'm enjoying the bridge. Like, you know, I went out and I made sure that I bought, you know, when Icon and Rocket and you know, when that whole launch of Milestone happened again, I made sure that I bought physical copies of all these issues. One, to support, but 2, I wanted, you know, to have them, and I wanted to read them in hand. And I can see the bridge. Like, you know, it is a fine line to walk between what was and what is, and you know, to set forth of what is to come. And I think that Milestone has done an excellent job at creating this Dakota universe for this generation, for now. And I'm definitely looking forward to, you know, them just continuing to expand upon it, you know. And I think
it's been significant.
For those who don't know, tell people a truncated version of what Milestone is and its significance.
That's what I was about to do. So, for those of you who don't know, in 1993, actually they kind of started in 92, but the books were released in 93. Several comic creators went out and created their own company. Now in the 90s, there was a lot of movement between creators and trying to gain control of their creations. There's a recognition that you had a lot of hot artists, a lot of hot writers who were creating these things that Marvel and DC were making tons of money on in merchandising, and these creators were getting nothing as a result. They were not getting, you had Todd McFarlane working on Spider-Man and making that one of the hottest books in the world, and not getting any of the money off of the rebranding of the character that he created. You had Jim Lee, who did such a spectacular job on the X-Men. Chris Claremont ultimately left the book, and Jim Lee's version of the X-Men that he created ended up being what is now considered a classic cartoon. Those are Jim Lee's creations. A definitive run on the X-Men. So they've Image, they formed their thing. Milestone did the same thing. These artists did the same thing. You had Dwayne McDuffie, you had Dennis Cowan, you had Derek Dingle, you had Michael Davis, and unbeknownst to many people, Christopher Priest was also one of the creators of Milestone.
Although he's black artists and creatives.
He's often uncredited because he ended up leaving and deciding to stay at Marvel at the time. But he's the one who actually came up with the Milestone logo and helped with many of the creations of the characters. I don't want to belabor the point because we literally have an entire Milestone roundtable series, which I really encourage all of you to go on YouTube and check out, because we put a lot of work and a lot of love into those series. And if you really want to learn about Milestone, that's where you want to go. I also highly recommend you check out the Milestone Generations documentary that's on HBO Max. There's also Robert. Let me finish. There's also Robert Kirkman's Secret History of Superheroes, the color of superheroes episode that he did. And then in terms of bridging that gap between the old books, it may be cost prohibitive for many people to buy all those old Milestone books. There's a Milestone compendium that's out that you can get at a reasonable rate to help you read those older books. So I'm a huge fan of Milestone. The Milestone books is really what turned me into a quote unquote a black collector and made me realize what was possible.
Did you watch the static cartoon when it came out? Because I never did.
I watched a little bit of it. I'd aged out at that point. I was too old to watch cartoons in general. It was more kid generated. Look, Milestone. The static cartoon was on at a time that I was in school or just starting my career, so I had other things going on in my life.
It's one of them things where, like, I remember in my early comic book collecting days when I was a kid, where it was just Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, and the Avengers, Wolverine. And by the time 1993, I was going into high school. My high school started in 8th grade. Where I went to high school and became like, I'm kind of similar, where you're caught between kind of like this phase out thing where what side are you on, or not side, but you're trying to figure out who you are still. And I kind of missed the whole Milestone beginning, which I'm disappointed. Hindsight, I'm totally disappointed.
Right.
Totally disappointed in that.
I'm there with you.
And and I'm just like, the importance of this. And I mean, I'm really big on IP. I'm really big on independence. And for them to set out and to do this in the 90s, and me knowing what the 90s were like, and like especially hindsight, I'm just like, this is huge. This is great. And for it then to get stagnated for such a long time, and for now it to be back and for it to be in full motion with great backing. I mean, Hudlin is there. He has his hands on a lot of it, and that means transmedia and everything's there. That's very important. I like the fact that it's not connected to the DC characters right now. As far as I haven't read every book, but as far as I know so far and what I've read, in the main 3 series, it's not connected to the Supermans.
The Superman
it's mentioned. It's mentioned in Icon about like I'm not going.
Superman does not survive their universe.
Yeah,
I'll just say
exactly,
it that way.
exactly. And I like the fact that this is something totally separate, and it's its own thing, and that DC Comics is allowing it to be its own thing.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that Milestone is its own entity, but it still is connected to DC Comics.
It's a DC imprint, right? It's a DC imprint, right?
Right.
No, not really. DC publishes it. Milestone's its own company. DC publishes it. They have a very unique deal.
But those characters, those Milestone characters,
I would call it an imprint,
pop up in DC properties for those people who watch.
That was after the fact. That was after.
There's no crossover now, but I believe. I would still call it.
Books. But what I was about to say was, for example, in Young Justice and in the DC animated universe with Batman the Animated Series and Justice League Unlimited, you had some of the Milestone characters, specifically Static, pop up in that world. And then in Young Justice, you have Icon, who's directly from Milestone, is a character, and Rocket appeared in Young Justice.
I would love to know.
As did Hardware, they made their appearances, but they're still owned by Milestone.
I would love to know. Well, see, I would love to know the verbiage on that because, again, I'm always intrigued with IP and how IP works and who has what, and I would love to know the verbiage on it because what I'm thinking is that it's probably some type of licensing agreement now.
Right.
That's my understanding is that there's a licensing agreement with Milestone and DC so that DC can, with Milestone's permission, use some of those characters.
Yeah, but see, I know because the original deal, going back to the 90s, is what brought them into DC, which then created this crossover thing. But I'm not sure with time, because even Christopher Priest, he has a character. Is it called Zero? I think I've never read it, but Zero, he has a character that he created that the time ran out on DC's license of the character, and
now he owns it fully, and he sold it to 50 Cent to make a movie.
Yeah,
very smart move.
And DC was not aware that the license ran out, but he kept up with it, and he owns it. He's like, it's mine now, and it's not going back there. So it's going to be this whole Zero universe that's just his. So again, I'm always interested and curious with IP and how it works, but I think that if Milestone plays this the right way, for lack of a better word, using DC to push, their characters, then give 10 years from now, Milestone doesn't need DC.
Right.
And I think that has to be the ultimate goal. Of course, DC is going to want to keep Milestone.
Yeah, I don't as much as they can separate Milestone from DC, I'm all for it. I don't need crossovers with DC. It's not necessary. Milestone have their own universe. They work well in their own universe. They don't need DC.
Especially if DC, with everyone's talking about DC eventually going to be sold with Warner Brothers to Disney anyway. I'm like, I don't really need to see Milestone crossover with Avengers and everything like that.
No, they need to have their own universe.
Yeah.
So just other books I got. I'm not going to go through to the storylines and everything, but the other books I picked up, Avengers and Moon Girl. Mm-hmm. This was dope. I'm a big Moon Girl fan now. I've almost completed my entire run on Moon Girl. I think I might be missing maybe 2 issues from her 47 issue run. If you're a Hal Jordan, blasphemy. If you're a John Stewart fan, you got to pick this book up. This is the Dark Crisis World Without Justice League Green Lantern book. At the end of Jeffrey Thorne, who we mentioned before, should be writing Black Panther right now. At the end of Jeffrey Thorne's Green Lantern run, he gave John Stewart a hell of a power up, but you never really got to see what that truly means until this issue. So if you're a Jon Stewart fan, you've got to add this book to your collection.
Hold on, I want to go back to something real quick. You mentioned Moon Girl. I'm not a Moon Girl fan. I've not really read anything involving her. However, I know she exists. I know what the character looks like. Last week, I was watching Jamie Foxx's new movie, Day Shift, on Netflix, which is a vampire hunting comedy. It also stars Snoop Dogg and Dave Franco, James Franco's brother. It's okay. It's an entertaining watch for the afternoon. But there's a young actress on there who plays Jamie Foxx's daughter by the name of Zion Broadnax. ZionBroadnax. Look her up, and if you can, Paul, pull up a picture of her. She would make a perfect Moon Girl. She's the right age. She's a good little actress, and she's actually open to that idea because I didn't tag her or anything, but I, created a post on Instagram and, used the hashtag with her name, and somehow she found it, and she DM'd me and was like, yo, I like this idea, blah, blah, blah. So look up Zion Broadnax. The little girl can act. She's probably like 10, 11 years old, if that, and is a really good actress, and she looks like she could play the character. So
I actually just gave away 2 Miles Morales Spider-Man Moon Girl variants on Whatnot like last week. Yeah.
That's cool.
You gave them away?
I gave them away.
All right, I'm gonna feel some type of way about that.
You gotta get them on Whatnot, bro. You gotta get them on Whatnot.
I don't have Whatnot, man. I don't have Whatnot.
Yeah.
You need to give them away. Give them away on Facebook.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, life now is all about streaming and platforms, baby. Streaming and platforms. That's what life is now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I need to get with the times to get a Whatnot account. I hear too many things about Whatnot. Also got Nubia #3.
That was good.
This was good. Since the original Nubia run was written by Stephanie Williams and Vida Ayala, this newest Nubia and the Amazons run is just Stephanie Williams. I'm not going to say anything specific, but I will say that Stephanie Williams writes Nubia by herself better. I have enjoyed Nubia and the Amazons far better than I did the original Nubia run.
I have no comments. We will talk offline about that.
Stephanie Williams is a great writer, and she has made this interesting. She's expanded the background. She has established origin for Nubia that's actually interesting, and has established a new arch nemesis type character, which is what I equate to Nubia's Killmonger in one issue.
Okay.
Maybe 2. And this is issue number 3 or 4.
What about Naomi? Did you get Naomi? You got that?
I did get Naomi. It's somewhere around here. I did get it. I read it.
I haven't read the new season yet. How is Naomi going?
It's all
cool.
right.
It's cool.
It's all right.
I mean, I won't say it's great. I think I like Nubia better, but I'm glad that they are centering around a black female team. We're getting a lot of black girl love in comics nowadays. A book that Paul and I read but didn't like the last issue. What was it, Eve?
Yes, that series was good up until the last issue.
Right. They shit the bed with that one.
They literally microwaved the ending.
Yeah, Eve, Moon Girl, which I don't read, Naomi. I'm really liking how they are centering around black girls. And the original story I really, really, really like. This one is just okay to me. I do like Nubia better.
Another series that I am a strong proponent of, I Am Batman. Say what you will about John Ridley's writing on Black Panther, which is this. I'm gonna get back to this, but he is an excellent writer when it comes to Batman. This I Am Batman run, I don't know if enough people are reading it, This is a beast of a book.
Did he
Beast of a book.
create
The
that character?
artwork and the writing is excellent.
Did he create that character or no?
No, no.
Well, he's been the only writer on the character.
But he's existed. He's existed like that.
Oh, you mean the character of Jace Fox?
Yeah.
No, he did not create Jace Fox.
Okay.
He's been around since the 70s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it's the first iteration of Jason's Batman.
It's he's the one who's done the first iteration of Jace as a Batman.
Yeah.
Jace has been out of the picture for 30 years. No one's heard of him.
What got me with the first series of this before it led into Iron Batman, and I haven't touched Iron Batman yet, is
look, if you like the first series, this is better. I've been with this character since Future State. And Ridley has written all of them. This is the best one by far. What
I like about it is the Black family. Like, I love what
it is. A Black family. This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This is a Black family. Okay. This is a Black superhero family book. I just can't wait for his little sister to put on a cape and it's over.
What issue?
So what
this is issue number 12.
Jeez.
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna jump on that, but here's where I stand with Batman these days. I'm not buying any more Batman. Like, I probably shouldn't say this as a comic book writer, but I'm not.
There's too many Batman books.
I'm not buying any more different Batman related books. It's just
I'm not buying any more Batman books.
Legitimately has 40% of DC's books are related to Gotham. That's not even an exaggeration. That's a fact.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so many, and I remember reading, this version of Batman, and I like the fact that it took it back really to like the roots of inner city. You had like the police, you had all that, and I enjoyed it a lot.
This version, he's in New York.
Okay,
so he's not even in Gotham, he's in New York, so it's a whole different vibe.
I'm going to jump all Brian, in on that.
Just try one issue. In fact, I'll tell you, start with I think it's issue 6. Issue 6 kind of restarts a whole storyline. That's a great jumping on point.
I'm gonna start with Iron Batman 1 and just I'm just gonna go through the whole thing. I don't mind that. It's just that, like, I've gotten to this place with Batman where, like, I know as a kid Batman was like one of my favorite, if not my favorite superhero, and I'm just like, there's so much Batman and there's so much Bruce Wayne. I don't know how, even with what Chip Zdarsky is doing now, and I've heard such great things about his run. I'm like, it's Batman. How much more can you tell about Batman that I haven't seen? And I know they're saying it's phenomenal, but I'm just like, how? Batman has been used in so many different ways. Bruce Wayne's Batman has been used in so many different ways. I don't know what else you could do that would be like, oh my God, that's amazing. I just don't know.
I'm not a Batman fan the way that Paul is, but I am collecting the White Knight series, I think it is. There have been about 4 different iterations of that, which has been pretty good. I guess it's like an alt version, future state version of Bruce Wayne and the Joker, which I've really, really enjoyed. Harley Quinn is in it. I really like that, but I don't. Yeah, every time I go to the store, the top row of my LCS is like 12 different Batman books, and I'm like, that dude would be dead from sheer exhaustion.
Yeah, I like that as with the White Knight as well. I actually met Sean Gordon Murphy like a few years back at Awesome Con, and he signed all of my White Knight books because I liked that version.
Yes, I do too.
Because it was a different take. It was a totally different take, and it had the Joker as did they use Jack Napier as his name? I'm not sure.
Yes, Jack Napier.
Yes. As like the main
straight out the Tim Burton movie.
Right. And I was very intrigued by like how, this dynamic of him as a real person and Harley Quinn as a real person and stuff like that. And it's like, see, I can appreciate that. And I can it sounds like I can appreciate I Am Batman. It's just that, like, it's crazy to say that I've run out of gas with like Batman, like Bruce Wayne Batman.
Yeah. We're inundated with it, as comic book readers. Because as I said, you go to the comic book store, the top row is like 12 different Bruce Wayne, Batman, or related books, and it's like, come on, guys, that's just too much. And
DC's put all their eggs in one basket. But
what else should they do when he's selling 100,000 copies?
Give the people what they want. I mean,
per month.
I get it. I get it. Now, Paul a moment ago mentioned John Ridley's work on I Am Batman, which is
all right. So hold on. This now concludes our reads of the week, and we're gonna move into our Wakanda section because we have some things to talk about in the Wakanda section. But before we get there, I want to do this commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Louis Simonson created that as a nod to static. As a nod to hardware.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh. A lot of people don't know that, right?
Let's go.
Nice.
We've been having some fun at the Black Comic Lords every Sunday with this Milestone Roundtable series. Again, check us out Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Black Comic Lords social media for our next episode, which will focus on Icon. Cool. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it's the Wakanda section because, as you know, we are Wakanda whiskey, Blerddom, and bourbon.
All right. I'm not familiar with until this book, Black Panther. I did not read. I don't read I Am Batman. I may go ahead and pick that up because it sounds interesting.
It's actually quite good.
Yeah, and Paul's been saying that, and that's fine. I trust his judgment in that regard. But we are 8 issues into the current run of Black Panther, which is volume 7, I believe, and it sucks. I understand that creatives don't necessarily want to hear people criticize their work. And Brian is a creative. I get that. I understand that. But I'm a consumer. I am a customer. I use my hard-earned money to purchase a product. I am not happy with the product that has been presented over the past 3 or 4 years, first starting with Coates, now with John Ridley. The reason why, and I'm going to be giving spoilers about this version, T'Challa, from the writers who have dealt with him going all the way back to Jack King Kirby, The gentleman whose name I cannot remember right now, who took over after Kirby in Volume 1.
Don McGregor.
No. There's another dude. I put a post. He wrote the last 3 issues of Volume 1, and I'll tell you here in a second. But McGregor, Hudlin, Priest, all of them presented T'Challa, and even the Avengers writers, all of them have presented T'Challa in a very honorable, magnanimous, regal way. The way that Priest has presented T'Challa has made him a female dog. He's just...
You mean Ridley or Priest?
No, Ridley.
Okay.
The way Ridley has presented T'Challa in this version. First off, let's go back to issue 1. T'Challa has been the king of Wakanda, let's say in real world time, probably 10 years, roughly. Real world, in our world, he's been the king of Wakanda going back to, 1963, okay?
66.
66, I'm sorry, 66. People who are raised in a monarchy are taught to revere the monarch, right? Look at how even people from the Caribbean view Queen Elizabeth, all right? They revere her, even though they're moving away from her as their monarch, head of state, or whatever. There is still a reverence the average person has for Queen Elizabeth. The same would be true in Wakanda for T'Challa. Everybody would know what T'Challa has done for and on the behalf of Wakandans, everyday average Wakandans. In issue 1, under Ridley, you had regular average day Wakandans disrespecting T'Challa, their monarch, to his face. I don't view that as happening in quote-unquote real life. Secondly, you have a Wakandan, a nation that has never been conquered by Europeans. You have this brother who is part of the government. I can't remember his name, but he has a permed and dyed blonde hair. That just wouldn't happen, right? Also, you have the characters speaking, specifically the royal family, speaking in common American vernacular. That wouldn't happen. That dude right there up top, I can't remember his name, but why in the hell?
I believe his name's Imani or whatever. It's irrelevant. Nobody cares.
Great, whatever.
This dude's got a blonde perm. You got Shuri here talking about hang back. I got the rest of them. Like, you were raised in
talk like that. These people were raised in a palace. It's just very, very bad. And going into the final issue, basically, Coates messed up the whole thing, getting T'Challa away from being a monarchy, making Wakanda a democracy, which I have issues with. So he's basically a figurehead at this point, which again I disagree with. And Ridley followed up on that by making T'Challa pretty much an enemy of the state. And it's
let me talk about this point, please. Let me talk about it, because this is hurting my soul. Understand the entire premise. Let me share this one thing with you, right? Here's a panel. T'Challa's talking about, I stand here owning my guilt. My guilt. He's standing before these people. He's standing before Amalola, who despises him. He's standing before his own General Okoye, who's always been loyal to him, but is having her reservations. The Midnight Angels, who have nothing but disrespect and hate for him. And Aurora, who literally cuckolds him at this point. So he's standing in front of all these women who just don't like it. Even his own sister only tolerates him because that's his sister. And he's talking about, I own my own guilt. What is the guilt that Ridley's referring to? Right? Here's his crime from issue 1. And tell me if this makes sense to you. Leader of country says to himself, let me protect the interest of my country by putting spies in other countries that have counterterrorism skills, counterintelligence skills, so that if those nations should rise up against my country, they'll be ready to act. Name a single superpower in the world that doesn't do that. Go ahead, I'll wait.
At the end of the day, I don't think
None.
that-
Let me finish. None. The whole premise for John Ridley's storyline is that T'Challa created this great crime by having sleeper agents in other countries. Something, by the way, that has always been what Wakanda has done. If you've read any of the runs of Black Panther, there has always been a representation of the fact that Wakanda has had people scattered throughout the world spying on other people.
That was even part of the first movie, the first solo movie, is that
Absolutely.
there are quote unquote war dogs out there in the world, in other countries, gathering information, all in the protection of Wakanda. It would be different if T'Challa was doing this for his own benefit, but he's not. This was done for the benefit of his nation and to protect his people that he has been tasked with protecting since he was a young child. Coates and Ridley have no idea who this character is. You were about to say something.
No, let me finish. So
hold on, Brian. Brian, what were we about to say?
He can finish though. It's okay.
All right. So Achille, who's his head of his Hatu Zeraze, his secret police, which by the way are one of the main guys that do all things like they're called the secret police. They literally operate in secret throughout the world. When White Wolf was in charge of them, he literally ran them across the world doing stuff for Wakanda. This is nothing new. The guy who they said, T'Challa, you screwed up by having a secret army, a secret agents around the world. We're going to take away your powers and we're going to give it to this guy who runs our secret police. The plot makes no sense. It's like you have to decrease your intelligence to wrap your brain around this plot. It's not only bad writing, the premise makes no sense. And I'm spending my time reading these issues like, what?
Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
If you're gonna knock him off the mantle and knock him off his throne and say he fucked up somehow, at least make it make sense. And this doesn't make sense. And this is why I brought up the fact that Ridley is not a bad writer. He's writing this. This is fire. This is one of my favorite reads every month. So he's not a bad writer. This is intentional. And I don't know why. I don't know why. I do know why, but I don't want to say it on the air.
I do know why. And my why might not be your why, but I'm going to just take a stab at it. And
break it down to us. Brian might.
I'm going to throw this out first, is that like I think it was issue 5 or issue 6. It was either 5 or 6 where I was just like, I'm done with this. And I remember I told my LLC, I said, you can take this off my pull. And I took it off my pull because I remember, like, we talked about it some too, but like it was just here's the situation. And this is it really goes back to some Langston Hughes shit where am I allowed to curse on here?
Yes.
Man,
yes.
All right. It goes back to some Langston Hughes shit where, in that there's one specific essay where, he writes about talking to the poet who only wants to be a poet. He doesn't want to be a black poet. And Langston tries to break it down to him, the importance of being a black poet. Like, you're the only one that can speak from this standpoint. For me, the difference between John really writing Batman and writing Black Panther is that you have a vigilante, right? You have a vigilante that, it's really no expectation. There's really no parameters for this vigilante. You know, a black character fit into a vigilante role is, I mean, I'm gonna say this, could be easier
Go ahead and say
easier
it.
to write than you have a black character who is that is revered in a king. Because see, this goes back to our identity in this North American continent, right? And how we see ourselves. And what Black Panther in this iteration has been used for, like, that's not T'Challa. What this is we're going to air out our grievances through this character about how the autocrat and how the monarch of America, quote unquote, has been, and how democracy should be. And so we've used T'Challa to air out our grievances.
Yes.
And that's what we're getting, and that's why he's not resonating. Whereas, I mean, simply put, just allow the character to be the character. And from a writer's
hold on, do I remember my comments about Nubia?
Mm-hmm. I remember.
Context.
I remember. And the challenge of the writer, and myself and Patrick, we toiled with this with Black Cotton, is stepping back from being fully immersed in this world and seeing and allowing the characters to be who they're supposed to be for the story. Because the characters, the story has a life of its own that right. As the writer, you are responsible for allowing it to be. J.K. Rowling has gone on record to say she messed up Harry Potter because the story dictated Harry and Hermione, however she's pronounced, they should have been together. But she forced it because it was already in her outline to go this way. The story will tell you how it's supposed to be. And so I think
Speak on it, me. Speak on it. Go ahead.
And I think what happened with Black Panther is what you're hearing is John Ridley's voice.
Yes.
John Ridley's voice, and he's airing out grievances through the vehicle of T'Challa, when T'Challa should have been allowed to be his character and to evolve.
And that's one of the things that
Coates actually started it. Coates should have actually allowed him to be it as well. But Coates is already immersed in it's one of the things, and I'm just going to say it. Kendrick Lamar says it, overnight activist, all the time. And I'm not calling Coates an overnight activist, but I'm saying activism also becomes a job. And you also get caught up into what it is to be this thing and to continue to proliferate like what this thing is. And so that's the difference between being a nonfiction writer and a fiction writer. When you jump into being a fiction writer, you have to take off some of these lenses that you have. And you have to allow a story to be the story. You have
and serve the character, not your own political axis to grind.
That's what it is.
Here's the thing. Coates is a brilliant individual.
Absolutely.
He is a smart man. He is not thus far a good comic book writer.
He just needed to take a step back.
I disagree with that. I mean,
that's fine.
Your criticism
but
of Coates.
At the end of the day, the only credit I will give to Coates is that he tried to put T'Challa and Storm back together again, and it was done organically.
He didn't try. He did. He was successful.
It was great because over in Avengers versus X-Men, whoever that writer was, he broke them up in like one panel in one book unnecessarily, despite all the groundwork that Reginald Hudlin had done.
That's Black
10
Love.
Years prior to that. Okay,
you can't have Black Love like that,
right?
I think that was actually Jonathan
Hickman.
Here's one
of the things that people don't really understand. In the two major comic companies, DC and Marvel, there are no long-lasting, long-running Black romantic love couples.
Specify between two superpowered Black people.
Two superpowered individuals. Okay, when you think of Superman, he's got Lois. When you think of Spider-Man, despite being a nerd, Peter Parker was getting some ass. He had Gwen Stacy.
All the time.
He has Mary Jane Watson. He has
Black
Black Cat. Okay, when you think of Tony Stark, he's got a whole harem. But when it comes to actual love, Reed Richards and Sue Storm, they've been together for 60 years. But when it comes to black superhero characters, A, we don't have many of them. B, we don't have any long-lasting couples who could go for generations like Sue and Reed Richards. Hudlin did a magnificent, brilliant job building the relationship between Storm and T'Challa, which was thrown away willy-nilly for no reason. So I will give Coach credit for building that relationship back up. But then again, over in X-Men in House of X Sword of X, whoever that writer was, had Storm do something against Wakanda.
That was actually Marauders 13.
Right. Whoever
and that was the writer. That was the writer that I was mentioning or not mentioning was the co-writer on the first Nubia run.
Okay, right. That, they did that unnecessarily, causing unnecessary strife and friction between these two characters of T'Challa and Storm, who should be together. Ridley just blew that completely and totally out of the water, okay? He basically had Storm saying to T'Challa, fuck you and everything that you stand for, okay? At the end of the issue, you see T'Challa on his knees, basically defeated. That's not who that character is. And I don't think Ridley understands who this particular character is. And the fact that Ridley thus far destroyed that relationship, cannot forgive that. Will not forgive that. It's unnecessary. That is something that's something that I, as a black comic book reader, want to see. I want to see black love. I want to see a black family. Going back to you, Mr. Hawkins, with your creations of The Vineyard and Black Cotton, what do we see? We see nuclear black families. We see husband and wife and kids. In future stories, supposedly Storm and T'Challa end up together with kids and grandkids in a lot of different iterations, and that's fine. But modern day writers are doing everything against that, and I do not understand it. And Ridley needs to be kept far away from this book. And like you, Brian, I wanted to end my collection of Black Panther, but as a collector, in good conscience, I can't. It's like me shoveling spoonfuls of shit because I just have to keep going. That's what Black Panther is to me. It is shit right now under John Ridley's writing. Okay, but as a collector, I can't have holes in my collection about this with this book. So I had to keep buying it.
This is the last page. This is the last page that Marc was talking about. You got T'Challa. He just defeated his enemy. He's lost his country. Everyone hates him.
His enemy defeated himself and committed Harry. I mean, it just
fine. So the point remains. The big bad is assumably gone, although there's a guy behind him. Obviously, I think it's White Wolf, but he's defeated a guy who's whatever. He's gone. Everyone's leaving him. He's no longer king. She goes, T'Challa, I have to go as well. Everyone else has left him. Even his sisters left him. I have to go as well. There's nothing else for me here. Please don't leave me alone. You got T'Challa on his hands and knees, begging Storm again. Understand, T'Challa has spent this series begging people. I beg you to forgive me. I beg you to help me. I beg you to help me defeat these people that are attacking Wakanda. I know I messed up by being a responsible leader and putting secret agents in other countries like all of other countries do. I know that was evil of me. Not really, but I'm not sorry, but sorry. He goes, please don't leave me alone. I leave, but being alone, you have done that to yourself. The king is dead. Long live the king.
You know where this should have went, and I thought about this when I found out that John Ridley was taking over. And one of the ideas that I had is that what the next progression of T'Challa, in my opinion, which is a fan, and if I was to put on my writer's cap, is that the next progression of T'Challa is to make him a father. Simple as that.
Absolutely.
It's like
not to some bastard, not out here just fucking around and creating babies, but in a nuclear family, and that was the whole purpose of Hudman putting him with Storm.
And even if you couldn't go back to Storm, I think you could have just started off with a story with T'Challa. Even if they weren't married yet, they were like, there's this connection, this relationship where he has a child now. He's a young child. Like, I think I actually wrote this down, like T. Raja or something like that, in where he is raising this young child, and now he is this king, this hero, but he's also a father. And he's also
things on that, Brian. Two things on that. One, he technically does have a child with Storm in the 616 universe. His son Azuri is in the Shield basement somewhere with the rest of the new, what do you call them? The Young Avengers, the New Avengers, the Teen Avengers, the Kid Avengers, whatever they call it.
Are you talking about
the alternate reality? Huh?
You talking about the movie?
No, in the comics. In the comics, the technically they have never touched it again, but technically his son technically exists. Number two, Jonathan Hickman, the guy who I mentioned before, the writer of that New Avengers run, the Incursions, all that stuff, the Secret Wars. He wrote a story called Giant Size Storm.
I remember you saying
X-Men Storm.
Yeah.
And if you read that story, as I did, and I literally thought for a moment, I was like, it seems like, for those who don't understand, the X-Men don't die. If they die, they can be reincarnated, but they're reincarnated in a new body. Storm had this moment where she was going up against the big bad, and she refused to be killed. The rest of the X-Men were like, why are you worried about being killed? We'll just bring it back in another body. And she adamantly declared, I do not want to be killed. It is wrong. It is wrong to just allow yourself to be killed. I don't want to do it. And I remember reading that. It's like, she pregnant. That's why she don't want to get killed. But ultimately, they made some explanation of, I philosophically think it's wrong for us to cheapen life by allowing ourselves to be killed. As it turned out, a year later, Jonathan Hickman released in an interview, that was his plan. Storm had gotten knocked up by T'Challa and was going to have his baby. And that's why she did not want to get killed. Marvel overruled them and said, we have other plans for them. Now, we know what those plans are.
Well, I mean,
it's to break them up.
Yeah, it's one of the things where, and you can become a conspiracy theorist, you can become whatever, but
you got a fan, Brian.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Hey, issue 2, September 7th. Please check it out.
All right.
Self-plug. There we go. It's one of the things where I mean, look, at the end of the day, no matter how we turn this, the comic book industry is still, it is what it is. And Marvel and DC are what they are. And at the end of the day, if you're pushing movies, you definitely want black faces because that's in right now,
Right.
And diversity, within, the print comics. Yes, that's a thing now as well. And you want that too, but like, how do you want to cater stories? And I think that's where kind of IP and independence comes in, because you had these characters. Like, I remember there's this big stink over Batman eating Catwoman out, right? And DC was like, no, Batman would never do that. And I'm thinking in my mind, like,
Bruce Wayne is a billionaire.
Bruce
Wayne done ate some pussy in his fucking life. Come on now.
Bruce Wayne been doing that for years, bro.
Right.
Like, do you know your characters?
Right.
And I'm just like, it's one of the things where I think, they want to, do you, I don't know, if you've read the Willie Lynch letter, then you have to, like, the ideology of that is like black love and connection. We need a little schism there because we don't want to present it full-fledged like this. It's one of them things where you can go so many directions in, but if you just stay true to the character and you stay true to what you're writing, the simplest route is that you mature T'Challa, as a character, which means let him be a father, and you give him a relationship and let him fend off, the adversaries of his family, as well as fend off the adversaries of, his responsibilities as an Avenger or whatever.
Can you imagine, Brian? Marvel's been around for over 60 years. And in all that time, as Mark has mentioned, you have Sue and Reed Storm's the first film, literally posted as the first family of Marvel. And in all that time, Marvel has never had a nuclear family of black superheroes.
Nope.
In an ongoing series, just for everyone who's going to jump on and say, yeah, Infinity Gauntlet, 2015. I remember that. Yes, I have that. But I'm talking about an ongoing series, an ongoing storyline like the Fantastic Four. There has never been an ongoing black nuclear family, a mother, a father, a child. Let alone an ongoing couple.
Right, and something to consider. When Reginald Hudlin wrote his brilliant run of Black Panther, when they got married, which was a cross-Marvel kind of storyline, it was an event storyline, the Watcher, Uatu, showed up at their wedding. He only shows up at important events. So when you think about the progeny of an herb-enhanced T'Challa versus an Omega-level mutant, they could have themselves produced an Omega-level mutant like Franklin Richards, which has been retconned kind of. But still, why else would Uatu show up at their wedding? And they just did away with that in Avengers vs. X-Men. As an aside, real quick, hold on a second. Ed Hannigan is the writer of the last 3 issues of Volume 1 of Black Panther, as well as issues of The Defenders where T'Challa and Namor fought for the first time. That's a name that's never mentioned as one of the best writers of T'Challa. Ed Hannigan is a name that needs to be in your mindset. Ed Hannigan. But their love, their relationship, it could have lasted for decades, literally decades, and they just got rid of it unnecessarily. And I will never ever understand nor forgive the writer. Like I said, I'll give props to Coates for bringing them back. I will not forgive Ridley for destroying them unnecessarily for no reason.
It's there's many answers for that, and the problem is that we don't necessarily want to assign those answers to people without like really knowing that that's the reason being. But you have to kind of look at it for what it is, and at the end of the day, black families, black love is something that, especially within the comic book industry, we're going with the big 2 at least, right, is not something that's pushed to the forefront. And again, I'm gonna go back to the Willie Lynch letter, which when I was an educator, I taught that in school, not as something being concrete, but even as like an ideology. And the ideology still stands of the fact of separation. And how much unity do you really want to show when at the end of the day you had the 13th Amendment to make sure that you have cycling through your system? You just don't want to do it. I mean, you just don't want to do it because at the end of the day, unity is power, and we don't want too much power. And stories and literature, they inspire, and everyone knows that stories and literature inspire. Everyone knows that.
Yep. And think about this. One of the other, I would say that Marvel has maybe 5 black preeminent superheroes. T'Challa, of course, Storm, Luke Cage, Power Man. Probably at this point,
Falcon.
Falcon, yes. And then you also have, you can either exchange Monica Lynn or Blue Marvel. I don't think
You say
Blue
Monica
Marvel
Lynn?
is up there in the top 5 yet.
You mean Monica Rambeau?
Monica Rambeau. I said Monica Lynn. Monica Rambeau. Think about this. Of those 5 that I just mentioned, 2 were in a relationship together that has been destroyed. Luke Cage, who is the other prominent black superhero in Marvel, he's paired up with a white chick. Not that there's anything wrong, obviously, with interracial relationships, but you don't see him with black love. He's been with Jessica Jones for 20 years, and they've got a kid together. Yeah. And every story about him involves him, his relationship with his girlfriend, and their child. We could have had that with T'Challa and Storm.
And I can attest to that, being a black man married to a white woman. But I recognize, you know, at the end of the day, I'm a black man, and my mama was black. You know what I'm saying? And I understand black
Your kids
love.
are black.
Huh? My kids are black, and
how they interact with this world is going to be based on not their white mama, but their black daddy.
100%. And as a black man, it is my responsibility to advocate black love, be it black love interracially, or be it black love as in black man, black woman. And there needs to be more advocation for that on the forefront, because at the end of the day, I'm not here without black love. You know, I don't exist. And so at the end of the day, I feel that in literature, you know, if you have this, I mean, come on, Black Panther is probably the most important black character that ever existed.
Right. And they basically said this highly successful, highly intelligent, highly proficient black superhero, the most, in my opinion, highly proficient black superhero in all of comics, is incapable of keeping a woman.
And how many relationships have Bruce Wayne had? Are you kidding me? I mean, you could have done, you could have done almost the same thing with T'Challa. T'Challa could have been together with Storm, and they divorced, and he's in another relationship with someone else. But for the most part, T'Challa is not in a relationship.
He's had two. Monica Lynn.
That's insane.
Storm.
That's insane.
He technically had a relationship with a white woman in college.
But it's still all insane is that you had this king and you had this black man, and he's just been like watered down. And come on now, I mean, from a fan standpoint, I'm gonna say that's.
I'm so done with this run.
From a writer standpoint,
hold on. Paul, pull up that issue of Black Panther Volume 3, I think it is, when he was pairing them with Storm, and it's T'Challa with a whole bunch of with a whole bunch of female superheroes. And the implication was that T'Challa had been with all or most of those women. But
I know what you're talking about. That's when he was Who's Going to Be His Bride thing.
Right. Pull up that, if you can, real quick, please. Pull up that cover so people can see what I'm talking about. I'm trying to find it's volume.
I know what it is. Hold on.
Volume 4, issue 14. And going back to Brian's point, that's something that we don't see with T'Challa. And in a certain respect, I kind of respect that. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't out there just planting seeds everywhere like Tony Stark has been, or even, like I said, Peter Parker. For a supposed nerd, Peter Parker has done well in the romance department.
100%.
But in the, 50-something years that T'Challa has been a character, he's had 2 long-lasting relationships. Storm, Monica Lynn. Right?
Yeah, it's interesting. Is that this cover that Marc's talking about, literally, he's had a relationship with none of these women except Storm on this cover.
But here's the deal. And this is just my kind of thing as a writer, is that, and this probably is soap opera influence on me, is that I don't care like how much success, how much a character has going on, whatever. What really brings us in as readers is relationships.
Yeah.
The human being, like the human nature of like what's in us is we're pack animals. We have this, even if we're not married, there's something about us that want connection. And we like to see connection. So you can have a horror story, you can have a superhero story, you can have, a fantasy story, but within that fantasy story, horror story, superhero story, you know what you need? You need some kind of connection. You need
Right.
some kind of relationship that's meaningful, because that sets the stakes higher for us, because it's personal, it's intimate. I don't care if you're trying to take over the world. That's cool. I want to see that. But I also want to see what's going on with Luke and Lily over there. I want to know what's going on with Malik, what's going on with Maria over there. Because in addition to that world being taken over, I'm also concerned about if they're going to fall in love or not, because that's who we are. And when you choose to just say that doesn't matter, you actually lessen the character. And they have lessened the character of T'Challa by not allowing him to have an integral part of the human condition.
Which is love.
They turned him into a robot.
Relationship.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. They've described him as a dysfunctional robot, just an emotionalist.
Exactly.
It cheapens the character.
It does. And there's no way around it. There's no way around it. Even when you're watching Black Panther the movie, you know what I'm saying? You like when his scenes with
Lakia.
Yeah, like you're into those scenes because you're like, what's going on with those? It has only a little to do with the plot. But the minute that you see that there's some type of connection between those two, it becomes like, oh, what is this? And it only infuses, it only adds to the bigger plot. And it's needed for characters, because characters are the mirror image of us. We want to see us.
Yep.
And I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how much, whatever, you're thinking in the back of your mind, yo, like, you know what? I'm gonna holler at this girl over here, or I got this. And she gonna see it. She's gonna see that I have this and that. I mean, Jay-Z said it perfectly. The power of the right.
Yeah,
that's where it comes down.
I'm sorry.
Jay-Z. The power of
he's just trying to get you to curse on me.
The power of the what? Brian?
The power don't pay him any money.
The power of the As far as I go, I can't spell. I'm sorry.
An English major can't spell. Okay, sure. All right, whatever.
We all have our deficiencies.
So I don't like, as Paul said earlier a moment ago, T'Challa Black Panther is the preeminent black superhero across all comic book companies. I don't think anybody could disagree with that. In the movies, it appears that they're going to kill him off due to the unfortunate, untimely death of Chadwick Boseman. God rest his soul.
Here we go.
And shut up. And in the comic books, they have neutered the character and made him ineffectual. I can't think of enough adjectives after a quarter.
Hold on. Before you finish, I know what's coming next.
That's funny. That is funny.
It's funny. It's funny only because it's necessary.
Oh,
that's
my
funny.
goodness.
But first off, fuck you. Let's start there. Secondly, yes, these are my views because I'm the one who's saying them.
That's priceless.
But I don't care about that.
No, they didn't need that anyway.
Right.
Nobody was asking.
Why did you bring Coates to write Superman? What?
Literally, no one cares.
No one cares about that.
I was like, okay.
With all
Do you want to be obvious with your stance?
He is the preeminent black superhero across all companies. Nobody can deny that. And the fact that the creators or the writers have denied him, as Brian just said, basic human interaction of romance with somebody else is a disservice to the character, and it's a disservice to us as customers and readers of this character. When back in during McGregor's run, when he had T'Challa with Monica Lynn, that was a beautiful story. You know, I mean, we saw T'Challa with Monica in her hometown in Georgia and having to fight the Klan. That was engaging. During Hudlin's run, when he had T'Challa with Storm, that was engaging. And then after their marriage, seeing them pop up in Fantastic Four, all of that was engaging. And we as readers, especially Black readers, having that just disappear does a disservice to the character, and it does a disservice to us as fans. Who else do we have? I think that another long-lasting relationship was Bumblebee and Mal Duncan over in DC, who also went by the name of Guardian.
Yeah.
Nobody gives.
And to DC's credit, I mean, they were an actual Black nuclear super couple who actually had a kid.
I did
something DC has never done.
Yeah, I don't recall them having a kid.
Yeah, they did.
I wasn't into those characters.
Yeah.
But who cares?
Then Crisis destroyed it. But you know,
it's a mess.
Because
it's a mess, and I mean, which is why Milestone is very important.
It is. I will say
very
that
important.
Real quick,
yeah.
Brian, recast T'Challa, not recast.
Recast T'Challa. I'm totally on board. I like you know, if we go back maybe a year ago when we were talking, I would have probably said hold off. I think I did say like hold off on it right now because of the sensitivity of it and where everyone's at. Let them mourn. But I think enough time heals all wounds, and at the end of the day, time progresses, and you have to come to a point of acceptance. And I think that the character is bigger than the actor, bigger than the person, and I think that you have to recast. For me, I'm okay with recasting outside of the 616 if they want to bring in another version. I'm okay with if they did it within the 616. I'm okay with it either way. Either way, I feel like there has to be a presence of a T'Challa and a Black Panther that has to exist within the MCU. At the end of the day, which is incredible for me to think, to be honest with you, I think Black Panther is probably the most important Marvel character. And I'm not sure if Marvel is aware of that or not.
In comics or live action?
Huh?
In comics or live action?
I think in both. I think he's the most important character. I think that the apex of Marvel's success in the MCU was actually Black Panther. And I think that everything else kind of just, you know, when you get the Infinity War and everything, it kind of just it got the windfall off of that, to be honest with you. Yeah. And I think in comics that he's still the most important character, even though he's not. I don't think that the continuity of the storylines dictate that. But I think if they actually went into it with that mindset, I think it would really change the whole guard of what the MCU is in the cinematic universe, and I think it would change the whole guard of what it is in the comic universe.
Okay, check.
Like they're just not aware of it for some reason. I don't know why they're not, but they're not.
All right, tomorrow Kevin Feige calls you, says, "Hey Brian, Nate Moore doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Brian, I want you to be the producer of the Black Panther property. Figure out what you're gonna do. You say that you're recast. Who do you, Brian Hawkins, hire as the next T'Challa? Who are your top 3 options? Go."
Man, I thought that question was going in some place that was far more relevant. Like, what was your plot points? Brian, expert writer Brian Hawkins.
Brian,
you would pitch to us.
I'm not a casting director. I would say, you know what?
Versions of T'Challa.
You have a top writer here, and you're asking him to make casting choices rather than story plot points. That makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Brian, who would be your top 3 choices to be the next T'Challa?
Brian.
Oh man, I would need a casting director. I honestly,
this is like asking a brain surgeon what type of garbage bag does he like.
Brian, who would be your top 3 choices?
I cannot give you my top 3 because I honestly don't know, but I can tell you the direction I would go though. That it might suffice. I honestly would go with someone who is not known.
Right.
I honestly would go with someone who is not like a name.
Right.
To be T'Challa. That's where I would start. I would
a Shakespearean trained actor.
I would not start with someone who is like that's like known in Hollywood.
Right.
Because for me that's fanfare. For this character I need someone who is that's going to be my next Chadwick, to be honest with you.
Someone with gravitas. Someone with gravitas.
Yeah. Like I need you to really carry this character and to become him. And I will also say to him, like, you have to understand the shoes that you're following. You have to be willing to fill these shoes. You're not only filling the shoes of this actor, but you're stepping into this iconic role that transcends comics and movies now. And I need you to understand that, and I need you to be that.
You're gonna become an icon to an entire generation of children.
So I can't give you a name because I don't think there's anyone by name for real that I know that, I probably have seen them, but I don't think there's anyone by name that I know say, hey, here's would be the perfect T'Challa. I just know that I need someone that's not as well known in Hollywood.
Let me answer the question that I just asked to Brian.
Okay.
What? You're going to answer a recast question?
Let me answer the question that I just gave to Brian.
That's so unusual.
Personally, I have a list of 5 individuals who I want to see take up the role.
Just 5?
Number 1 would be Damson Idris, who plays in Snowfall.
I need pictures, Paul.
Can bring him up as we're talking.
As he's talking, I need pictures.
Paul can bring them up as we're talking.
I'm like the trained monkey of you guys, man.
Damson Idris plays in the show Snowfall. He plays in the 1980s. The show is set in the 1980s, and Damson plays a South Central kid who becomes basically a drug kingpin. In real life, Damson Idris is a Brit, much like Idris Elba in the early 2000s. Was a Brit who played Stringer Bell from Maryland. Mm-hmm. Damson Idris is a Brit himself, and I want to say he is of Nigerian parentage. I didn't know this the first season.
I can see that.
Right. He's tall, he's young, and this boy can act. He's an extremely good actor. That's something that's really, really needed to take over this role. There have been some names that have been bandied about. Chadwick Boseman was a once-in-a-generation talent. Some of the names that I've seen, John David Washington and Trevante Rhodes, looking at you, they don't have, to me, the skill that Chadwick Boseman did and that Damson Idris does. I think that he would be a perfect fit. Put him on that Marvel diet workout plan, he would be great. My second choice, number 2, is a dude by the name of Abubakar Salim.
I can't spell that.
Abuba, right there. Abubakar Salim. He plays in a show called Raised by Wolves. It's a dystopian show. Mm-hmm. It's really, really good. If you've not seen it, it's only 2 seasons. Very, very good. He leapfrogged my number 2 choice, my normal number 2 choice, who's now number 3, because of this performance that I saw in this series.
See this outfit he's got on here?
Right.
Does that look familiar?
Yes. That boy can act. He's young. And one of the things for me that I take into consideration is somebody young enough to portray the role for 10 years or longer. He's about 30, 31 years old, just like Damson Idris is.
He's 29.
Right. So he could conceivably do this role for 10 years with no deleterious effects. He's a great actor. He's about 5'10". He's a Brit, but I think he comes from African heritage like a lot of Black Brits.
It's Nigerian.
Right. Number 3 is somebody who Paul knows is Sope Dirisu, who was in the phenomenal show called Gangs of London. If you have not seen the show Gangs of London, I'm going to highly encourage you to watch that show. Gangs of London was created by the dude who made the Raid movies. Sope Dirisu is another Brit, but he is of African heritage. Now, physically, he may not be to some individuals as attractive as, say, Damson or other individuals. But A, this boy can act. B, based on his performance in Gangs of London, he has the physicality needed that you can see him as a superhero. So those are my top three. I get tired of people saying Aldous Hodge, who is already Hawkman. I get tired of people saying, hey, bring Michael B. Jordan back as Killmonger. You know, Killmonger is fine, but he is not T'Challa. I want an actor to play or portray T'Challa. And Aldous Hodge, who's a good actor, is already playing Hawkman. And I don't want to see the same 2 or 3 people playing multiple roles because it's unnecessary.
If Marvel is smart, and I feel like the MCU is smarter than the comics, to be honest with you. I feel like, you know, they understand that, you know, they're going to get away with Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and they're going to have this huge sentimentality to it, and they're going to get everyone to go see it because they want to know what it will be. And it's really going to be, in my opinion, you know, it's going to be part this mourning of Chadwick, and then it's going to be part how to move forward. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, once you get past this secret invasion, once you get past the King Dynasty, you're gonna need a T'Challa. And
what is it about Black people, do you think, Brian, that they deify people and they deify specifically actors? Because Chadwick was a great actor, no doubt, and he did a phenomenal job as Black Panther T'Challa. But you've got so many people who've never heard of this character prior to 2016 saying that Chadwick is the only person who could ever play this role and we don't need anybody else. And I mentioned specifically, or I think about specifically, Richard Harris in the Harry Potter franchise who played Dumbledore in the first 2 movies. And I think about Andy Whitfield who played Spartacus the first season of Spartacus. Andy Whitfield, just like Chadwick Boseman, God rest his soul, died of cancer. But you didn't hear or see white people saying, oh my God, Andy Whitfield died. We should never have another Spartacus. That series needs to end or go in a different direction. But Black folks are saying, oh my God, Chadwick Boseman, the actor, is dead. Therefore, the character that he brought to life should also die. Why do you think that is? What is it about us as Black folks that causes so many to do that?
Black
people
do not like to have nice things. Black people specifically don't feel that they deserve nice things.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go with that. But what were you about to say?
I 100%.
That's great, Brian. What were you about to say?
I think they made us this way. I think that
that's exactly my point. Go run.
All right, bet. Yeah, I felt like we were on the same path. I felt like that our lack of identity in this North American wilderness.
Speak on it.
Plays a crucial part in how we see ourselves and even how we see our heroes and in how we idolize. Because to idolize something is, to be honest with you, it's part of human nature. We're going to do it no matter what.
Yep.
You know, thou shalt not, whatever. I mean, that's cool, but we're going to do it because that's just a part of who we are.
Yep.
And I think that not having, I believe not seeing, I believe not knowing who we are. I mean, I would even go so far back to the fact that we are saved by a white man.
Oh my God! Break it down, brother.
We are saved by a white man who died on a cross. When all actuality, it wasn't a white man. It was a Jewish man who, back in the time, would probably skin as brown as mine, actually,
Well,
if not
if you
darker.
believe the Bible, which I don't, but if you believe the Bible,
Right.
his skin was bronze and his hair was like wool.
Yeah, and you know, and that's the whole thing where, you know, how we receive the religion is really, I mean, and that's why religion to me is so important, really, when it goes to sociology and anthropology, because it really informs us of our identity. And so when you have a people who have been stripped of their identity, you know, a lot of things come with that. And so to get back to your question, I think that when it comes to idolization, which is really just looking at God, to be honest with you, like there's really no difference if we're going to be honest with you. You know, it's all about how we say, you know, we had this idea of, oh, God is this and that. But when you look up to people, it's the same thing. And you have this idolization, and we're like, well, no one can replace this because this is it. It's because we feel as if we have had so less in life that now that we have it, nothing else can be more to it. We are in this constant friction of, we don't want change, we don't want evolution, we don't want to understand those natural concepts that really are systemic to who we are as a people in a tribal nature. Like that's who we actually understand change in nature at its core, but it's been so ripped from us that we're the antithesis of it right now, and we've been that way for hundreds of years now. And I think that we're seeing it, which is crazy to say, but we're seeing it in how we view our mythos of superheroes, and specifically in T'Challa.
Why does the cage bird sing, Brian? Why does the cage bird sing?
Why does the cage bird sing? To be free.
You've got to make the best of your bad situation. Our people have always been forced to make the best of the limitations that have been imposed upon them. And when you get into a habit of doing that, making the best of a bad situation, sometimes it can limit your aspirations.
Agreed.
Or limit what you see as possible.
Agreed.
You limit your viewpoint of what you think you are capable of doing, and more importantly, what you think you're capable of deserving. And this is what I mean by Black people oftentimes don't like to have nice things. We don't think that we're worth it. And we've got to break ourselves of that. We're allowed to have nice things too.
But when
you have you have the character of T'Challa, you have a character who broke record books. First of all, it was a miracle just getting him on screen. I mean, I said for years, there's no way they're ever going to put Black Panther on screen. Just not going to do it. Marvel's not going to do it. They did it, and they did it gloriously. And he ended up being the character, the single most successful superhero character of all time. $1 billion. Now, Marc is tilting his head to the side, saying, "I don't. Let me weigh in on that and see if that's actually accurate." Because Spider-Man, No Way Home made more money. But I'd argue, of course, that Spider-Man No Way Home wasn't just a Todd Holland, whatever the guy's name is, movie. It was him and Andy Garfield and Tobey Maguire movie. It's
Captain
a
Marvel
three-person.
But you don't even get to those movies.
T'Challa's Black Panther still made more money than Captain Marvel.
But that's my point, is that you do not get to these movies without Black Panther. And that's my point. You don't even get to those movies without Black Panther. Did something, it was the first Marvel that Marvel did maybe wanted it to do, and they thought that the timing was right for it. Because see, all this is really an economic decision.
They had no idea Black Panther was going to make that.
We are at this. and you had to think the minds that the brain trust that was happening, within all of them before they actually said, let's do this movie. It's like, are we at this place where we can do this movie? Do we
If
really
Marvel knew Black Panther was going to do as well as it did, it would have given her a bigger budget for the end fight scene.
100%? It wasn't a crapshoot. 100%. They were testing the waters, and they thought they were hedging their bets to say, I think we're at this place where we can do this. Given the climate that we're in, I think this can work. And what we have to understand is that at the end of the day, that the Black character, the Black story, the Black artist, a lot of times have been really just put on because of the economic windfall or benefit that it could bring. And Absolutely. That's what it's about. That's all. At this point in time, in this juncture in time, Marvel is saying to themselves, well, Black Panther has, I don't want to speak for Marvel, but I would imagine that they could say Black Panther has served its purpose. It got us over this hump.
It broke the barrier.
It showed that we're willing to do. And do we need any more Black Panther in the cinematic universe? We're now going to reap the benefits and the rewards of what Black Panther did. And we can go maybe 5, 10, 15 years without ever doing anything Black Panther anymore because we already did it. And there's no one else in our contemporary standing that can do it. As a matter of fact, let's be honest, The Rock is going to try his damnedest for Black Adam to be it for DC,
that but it's not top out at about $500 million. I don't.
But it's not going to be what Black Panther was.
Yeah,
Marvel got it. Marvel got it before DC did, and they are going to ride it. And they don't necessarily need to do it for art's sake. What we're talking about is doing something for art's sake and doing it for story's sake. Yeah. Marvel is not going to do it for art and story's sake. It has to have an economic benefit. Right. And they can get that benefit now with Jonathan Majors as Kang.
And that's a damn shame. And I think that's where you have the dichotomy between comic book fans of the character of T'Challa, like myself and Marc, who knows what's possible in terms of these stories. The what's possible with what this character can be done if they allow them to do so. And you've got the fans who are just sort of, they're fans of the movie character and they don't know what's possible. And so they limit their vision of the character to make statements like, well, anybody can play Black Panther. It's a mantle. First of all, you don't know what you're talking about. Second of all, you got over 50 years of history of these stories that you're unaware of. So you're making these statements from a vacuum, which is uninformed statements about anyone can carry the mantle. And it happened in the comic books. Well, yeah, it happened in the comic books for 5 minutes. That wasn't the point of why it happened in the comic books. And by the way, T'Challa didn't have to die for that to happen.
Marvel's downfall, and it's going to take, hopefully there's no downfall, but what goes up must come down. The thing about it is that, stories have to have feeling. Stories have to have connection. And I think that when you begin to go too far out and you begin to just explore the event, like if you just tell stories based off of events that you think are cool, you're going to lose. Stories still have to have meaning.
Yeah.
It still has to have a central force. And I think that as the Marvel universe is expanding, that I hasten to think where's all the emotional connection going to come from? The further you go out into space, the bigger you make this, are you losing the intimacy and the personal nature of the stories? You can tell these stories and expand as much as you want, but you still have to have some central force that really connects with your fans, and those are the intimate stories. Marvel has done well with even to who the character Peter Parker is. With
Wait, who did you say? What did you just say?
Marvel has done well with in comma, even to who Peter Parker is, with the relatability of their characters to the human being. And your danger in the MCU is that if you go too far out without making sure that you're still relating to who's coming to see the films, events is the awe-inspiring, like, oh, that was cool. That's going to wear out. That's eventually going to wear out. You have to have meaning in your stories.
Right.
And the danger of the MCU expanding and continuing to expand is going without meaning. And I think that them accepting T'Challa just being gone as a character is their first step towards, you know what, we don't really need a whole lot of meaning. You know what, we can just, we have cool events. People want to see these cool things happening, based off, we can take bits and pieces of the comics and we're fine. I don't think that's going to work forever.
Right.
If you want to continue this, you have to continue with what you built and what you set in place. Like, I remember a long time ago. I'm sorry, I'm so long on this, but I remember a long time ago when I was trying to talk to this one girl before I got married. Like, she said, like,
you got married.
Before I got married, yeah, for sure. I make sure I say that during online. Like before I got married, she said, because I hit her up in a real nice way and we started off real smooth. And she said, and I wasn't slipping too much, but she was like, what you did.
Hold on. I got you covered.
Oh, I got it.
Go ahead,
yo, I was waiting to see my name up there like Marc, yo. Like that's what I need to see next time. Like, she actually said to me, like, yo, like, what you did to get me, you got to do to keep me. And like, that's a true statement. Like, what Marvel did to get us, Marvel need to keep doing to keep us. Because, I mean, and here's a plug. Like, independent comic books is not going anywhere. And every comic book publisher that I know of is adamantly pushing transmedia and different forms of media. And there are studios and production companies that want other things outside of Marvel. And the Marvel and DC believes that they can never become obsolete. And I don't think they can become obsolete. There's another market that's continually emerging, that's willing to touch on, that have the events, that have the stories, that have the personage of storytelling that Marvel also needs to have. And I think Black Panther is an integral part of that. And they have to do Black Panther right. They have to recast. They have to tell meaningful stories. And without that, 10 years from now, I mean, I know you're planning 2030, but 2030 needs to come with meaning as well.
I'm on record as saying that I'm boycotting Black Panther 2 Wakanda Forever unless somebody tells me that the movie is set either during the blip, during that 5 years from when Thanos blipped people and the Hulk brought everybody back, or they don't kill off the character. Today, I went to the movies to go see the movie Beast, Idris Elba's latest movie. Mm-hmm. Don't go see it. It's not a good movie.
What's it called?
Beast.
Beast?
Beast. Beast. Basically, Idris Elba is in the
Is that the one with the lion?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry?
Is that the one with the lion in the jungle?
That is the one with the lion. It's not a good movie. Do not waste your time. Wait till it comes on streaming. It's not worth the $10, $20, $30, $40, $50 that it's going to take for you to go see that movie with your family. It's not worth it. But I want to see T'Challa on the screen. And if Paul is the only person who's ever going to trust in this, right? if he goes to see this movie, because I'm boycotting it,
Mhm.
I have no interest or desire in seeing this movie unless somebody who I trust tells me. I don't want specifics, but if Paul tells me, "Hey, go see this movie," he knows what I feel about the character and what I feel about what it seems like Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios are doing with the character. It appears that they are killing him off, him being T'Challa. If Paul goes sees this movie and said, "Hey, you need to go see it," in my mind, I'm going to think, okay, they either A, said it during the blip, or B, they did not kill off T'Challa. I was saying a moment ago when I went to go see the movie Beast, this was the first time that I saw the trailer for Black Panther. I have not watched anything Black Panther related. There are several YouTube channels.
Oh,
that
so
I
you did finally get to see the trailer.
I saw the trailer. It was not intentional, but it was playing before the show Beast, which is not a good movie. There are several YouTube channels that I follow, specifically Heavy Spoilers and Screen Crush, that break down a lot of nerd type Marvel stuff. I didn't even watch the breakdown of the Black Panther trailer when it first dropped.
So we got to talk
I-
about it because that trailer dropped a while ago, and I tried to ask you about it, and you said you refused to watch it.
And that's fine. But I did not watch it. I have no desire. I had no desire
I get it,
to
but
watch it.
you watched the trailer as it came before.
I watched the trailer today when it was played.
So what did you think of the trailer?
The trailer was beautiful, and quite frankly, it almost brought me to tears because and that's not hyperbole or anything. It's because I thought about the loss of Chadwick Boseman. I thought about the potential loss, more importantly, of the character T'Challa. And there is no indication on when or where this is set. So it's conceivable that it's set during the blip. I don't know. But all indications by speeches and talks by specifically Nate Moore, who is one of the producers of the show, saying that we will not see T'Challa again in the 616 or whatever, that to me as a fan of not only the MCU but T'Challa specifically, I don't want to see anything that kills off the character of T'Challa. So again, if Paul goes to see it and he's not boycotting, but if he says, "Hey, you need to go watch this," I will, thinking in my mind, they're not killing off the character, or it's set during a period that leaves open in the next movie T'Challa being brought back.
Well,
No variants, but T'Challa in the 616.
I hate to tell you this, it's not set during a blip because Shuri was part of the blip.
And see, yes, right. No, I get that. I understand that. But here's the thing.
No, she was part of the blip.
Listen, I understand you. During Avengers Infinity War, during Avengers Endgame, we saw the people who were blipped. But we never saw Shuri blipped. We saw T'Challa blipped, but we never saw Shuri blipped. So
it's canonized, though.
It could conceivably be retconned to say, okay, she was not in fact blipped.
Marvel not going to retcon. You can Google that information.
And that's fine. I understand your position.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying from a narrative standpoint, it could conceivably be done.
I hate to break it to you because I understand where you're at with this, but the way that they're going to do this is they're going to, in their mind, honor Chadwick as 616, and they're going to allow that version of T'Challa to be gone.
Yeah,
that's the only thing.
If they go with the leak, if they go with what's been leaked as the plot, I think both Mark and I are going to be very unhappy because that plot requires Chadwick's character of T'Challa to have been killed. And the way that these creators at Marvel have rationalized why that's fine is that Nakia is going to have his son.
Yeah.
And that fixes it. And it's like, no, I don't go to a Superman movie to see the son of Superman. I don't go to a Spider-Man movie to see the son of Peter Parker. I don't go to a James Bond movie to see the son of James Bond. I go to see Peter Parker.
I mean,
I go to
here's
see
the problem,
Mark,
guys.
and I go to see Peter Parker, and I go to see James Bond.
Here's the problem: is that life happens, unfortunately, with some things, and someone within the brain trust should have said stop. Someone should have said, look, there's no way that we cannot make an emotional decision about this character, about these movies. We need to take a step back. We need a year or two to allow ourselves some more so we can think clear-headed about this. They didn't do that.
Nope.
What they decided to do was they decided to go with their emotions, and they wrote Ryan and all of them because, one, you have this budget you want to capture with everything. And let's be honest here. You're also going to capture a lot of the people who are going to want to mourn Chadwick through this movie. You're going to capture a lot of those people going in as well. So it's going to be,
in essence, profiting off of that man's death.
And let's just be honest. A lot of the people who
they wouldn't profit off
came to see the 2018 movie Black Panther, they have never read a comic book in their life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Brian, if you had to guess of the black population, what percent would you say were comic book readers of
20.
all of Black America?
Maybe 20. Maybe 20.
Maybe 20.
Maybe 20. I mean, but here's my spill on it. Here's my take. And I'm willing to allow for, if I can use the word allow, a 6/16 death of that version of T'Challa if I can get another T'Challa.
Nope.
And here's why. Because they're making me choose no T'Challa or another version of T'Challa. And I would rather have another version than none at all. And at the end of the day, they're not going to recast. In my opinion, I don't think they're going to recast a 6/16 T'Challa. It's just not in their DNA. They're not going to do it. If
they made an emotional decision unnecessarily.
They did.
The MCU would therefore have been successful in doing something that 50 years of comics have never been able to do, which is to kill T'Challa. T'Challa has never, ever died in the comics.
You know what else is possible? And you guys, and I don't know if you guys don't like this. Feige has gone on record to say that the What If cartoon informs us of T'Challa. I mean, and you got the Secret Invasions coming. I think enough time has passed that they could say at some point in time that wasn't T'Challa. I don't want
Star-Lord T'Challa to come back to Wakanda and say, "Hey, your lost son has been found, and I'm a cool Star-Lord guy, and I'm going to come back to my roots to Wakanda and be your T'Challa." I'm not interested in all that because it's not necessary.
It's not necessary. But the MCU
hire a different actor and just have him play T'Challa.
But the MCU, what we also have to understand as readers and fans, is that the MCU is not
the comics. I hear this all the time. I get that. But I'm saying it's not necessary to kill within the MCU. Going with that, the MCU is not the comics. Fine, it's irrelevant because the MCU had Terrence Howard as Rhodey.
But Terrence,
couldn't do it anymore. They didn't say, "Hey, let's kill off Rhodey and
Terrence
make a new Rhodey out of the multiverse." They hired a new actor.
We're dealing with a different level character. We're dealing with a different level of actor. We're dealing with a different level of response. I 100% get what you're saying, and I'm in agreement with it. My thing is that I don't think that's our reality. What I'm trying to say is that we have to allow for the MCU to be separate from what the comic book is. The comic book universe has its own issues, obviously, with Ridley. But the MCU, we have to allow to be what it is. And if the MCU is saying, look, we have a choice between no T'Challa at all or a different version of T'Challa,
I don't think that's a choice because
It
I
is.
don't think economically that's a choice in the sense that they've got way too much merch with a Black Panther to simply get rid of the character. I think they're going to do a alternate reality version of the character, and I disagree with that. I don't think it's necessary.
That's what I'm saying. They're
Just
going to
hire a
bring in
different
a
actor.
new T'Challa that's from a different timeline. They've set that up with Loki.
Yeah, I anticipate that is exactly what the MCU is going to do.
Yeah.
But my point is, it's just unnecessary. It's just not necessary.
It is unnecessary from the comic book perspective. I think from the MCU perspective,
From a common sense perspective, it's just not even necessary because they've recasted other characters before.
Well, I don't know because see what
The
they're
Hulk.
looking at. What they're looking at is they're looking at the
Exactly.
the economic benefits. How do we make everyone happy?
You can't, and that's the thing. You cannot, and they made an emotional decision, thinking based on what you just said, that 20% of Black people specifically only read comics. So the other 80% who came to watch the movie multiple times have no basis of knowledge of the stories that involve T'Challa. And so they were more concerned with trying to placate and please those individuals who were Chadwick Boseman fans than are actually fans of the character T'Challa.
It's almost insulting in a way because you're kind of assuming you're treating Black people like children. You're basically saying, sure, we can recast Rhodey, we can recast Hulk, but we can't recast T'Challa because Black people can't emotionally deal with that.
Right.
And we know that Black people are the ones that drove our numbers to give us these $1 billion.
But I'm playing devil advocate. Are they wrong? Because I want to offer this real quick. How many people would go see a recasted Black Panther 2? You okay, but I want you to think about the bigger picture. Versus
go on Twitter. You are active on Twitter. Go on Twitter and put in the hashtag recast T'Challa.
I get it, but in my okay. So you're saying that the number is larger?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the number is larger, but it is not as small as you might think.
I don't think it's small. What I'm thinking is that the other's larger, and I think that's all that matters to Marvel.
I think
people will get over it.
But
And
I think if they announce a different actor,
on the flip side, they would lose a smaller portion of people who are loyal to the comics if they brought in a different version. Because here's why: you're still honoring the past while saying we're moving forward. They get their best win-win in that situation, and this is a business. And they're saying this is how we get the best.
It doesn't make logical sense to me, Brian. It just doesn't make sense.
What's
the difference between? Why do you have to say he's an alternate version? Just recast different. He's an alternate version because there's a different actor.
Walk with me, because we had to suspend our belief here, right?
No, I don't.
No.
Just give me a different actor.
No. I'm asking you to suspend belief here and look at it from this character, this world, and think about how viewers have emotional ties. If
I have emotional ties to Sean Connery as James Bond. I have emotional ties to Christopher Reeves as Superman, but I was able to get over it and appreciate their subsequent actors.
The key word that you keep saying is I. And what you're doing is you are expecting people to be able to be like you are.
Black folks.
And
I expect people to have common damn sense.
But
yes, I do.
Stop expecting. What I'm trying to say is step out of expecting. Step out of expecting and let's look at reality of people instead. I get what you're saying and I agree with you, but I'm trying to say that most people are not like that. What I'm saying is
most people are idiots and they deserve.
Okay, well, let's look at the idiots then. If we're looking at the idiots, take a step back and say, okay, here are the idiots. And most of the idiots, here's what they need. Most of the idiots, and I'm saying that, I'm a disclaimer here, guys. So most of the idiots, what they need is they need for Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther to have existed. Period.
So black people are the only
Right
people
there.
on the world who can't deal with the concept of death.
Read that right there. That's not the case, though. His death plays a part in this. What that means is that
we can't get over death. We've been dying for a long time, man.
No, we can't. Idolization. They have recasted, but never a role where the actor passed away. A lot of emotions go with that. That is exactly what I'm saying. See, what I'm saying is that you cannot, based off of that right there, and how many people feel that way. Marvel is saying we can't do it. The best that we can do.
Hold on. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but let me just interject this. I mentioned this earlier. Spartacus, a show on Stars.
It doesn't matter.
This isn't the MCU, and I understand that. But the main star of Spartacus died because of cancer. They did not cancel the show. They recast the character and kept it moving.
Let me be specific on your Spartacus point. Hold on. Let me be specific on it. You're slightly missing a point on Spartacus. Let me point something out that parallels Black Panther. When the actor, what's his name, what was his name?
Andy Whitfield.
Anthony Whitfield died. They did not recast immediately. What they did is they made another season of Spartacus as a prequel.
Yes, because he was.
Hold on, let me finish. He did a prequel. Let me finish. He did a prequel where the character was not involved. They let the show go on.
Yes.
So they did an earlier version where that character wasn't part of the show. And then in the third season, they brought in a new actor to continue the series.
Yep.
And very similarly with Black Panther, they could do a prequel, or they could do a movie that has nothing to do with the current story. Let me finish. They could do a story. They could easily do a story that takes place during the blip.
Yes, they could have, but it does not appear that that's what they're doing.
It can't be during the blip. It cannot be during the blip.
It can't. Let me explain why.
Shuri was a part of the blip.
It does not appear that that's what they're doing.
Let me explain how it could occur during the blip. Where our knowledge as to what happened to Shuri,
it's canon.
Our knowledge of what happened to Shuri has nothing to do with us seeing her get blipped. We did not see her get blipped.
But it's canon. She was blipped.
What we saw was in Infinity Endgame, where they showed a screen where T'Challa and Shuri were on the screen. But we don't know the context of what that screen was. We don't know what's going on with Wakanda. Wakanda's a closed country.
Everything that you're saying is true. I'm going to interject here, and everything that you're saying is absolutely correct. But from all indications, the series is not set during the blip. If it is not set during the blip, what they're going to do appears to be they're killing off the character of T'Challa.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying they didn't. Absolutely. It was unnecessary because they had an out that could have allowed them to explain.
Right, they could have, but it does not appear that they're doing that. Going back to Spartacus and to whoever the commenter was, Andy Whitfield was the star of the show. He was the focus of Spartacus. He got sick. While he was sick and recovering, as Paul just said, they did a prequel to give him the opportunity to get well, which he did not do. He fucking died.
This space with you says Spartacus didn't last long after that, and it was never the same.
But they only had 3 seasons. I mean, that seems... We know from history what was going to happen with Spartacus. Spartacus was going to go up against the Roman Empire, and he died. That is history. So it's not like this series was going to go on for 5 or 6 years. The point remains that Spartacus was recast. The main character, the main actor who played the main character died due to cancer. Nobody during that time was like, oh my God, the great Andy Whitfield died. We cannot continue this series because he died. They didn't do that. They recast with somebody else. Only black people are sitting up here saying, oh my God, the great Chadwick Boseman is dead. Therefore, we cannot continue with that particular character. and it is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I
We
mean,
need to stop deifying individuals because of our love for them. They performed.
Yes, man.
Chadwick Boseman, God love him, God rest his soul, performed a role. He did a very good job.
Yeah,
But he is
I agree.
not the only person on the face of this planet who can play that role. The character of
I
T'Challa
agree.
is bigger than Chadwick Boseman.
Look,
If Tom Holland died today, they would not have another Spider-Man.
Yeah,
for
this
20
wouldn't be a conversation.
look,
This wouldn't be a
look.
conversation.
I'm in agreement with you, and we've already talked about like the reason why this exists, but it's the same reason why people for so long thought Tupac was alive, and it's the same reason
Because
why
people are stupid, Brian.
it's the same reason why Jada Pinkett Smith's daughter was writing letters to Tupac. It's the same reson why. It's because
People
it's
are fucking
because-
stupid.
well, I mean,
Yes,
stupidity.
people are stupid. Go ahead and say it.
Okay, I mean, people can be stupid, yes, but it's also because of historically and just what this world has done to us as a people. It has put.
Mike says he wasn't as renowned as much as Boseman, and the show not lasting means a lot. They don't want it to bust as well. We will get a recast, but it's going to be a few more years.
Look, okay. So I have to say this, and I just had to say this. Let's be clear. Chadwick's passing. Like, my first thought was not Black Panther. My first thought was he was a 43-year-old black man who had colon cancer. And
We lost one of the greatest actors.
and my
of
first
his
thought
generation.
was myself. My first thought was like, I recognize my mortality.
Yep.
Yeah.
I recognize not, oh my God, Black Panther's gone. I recognize this young black man with this promising future who had done this great body work already,
Right.
was gone from this world. And that hurt me. It was not that Black Panther was gone. It was the man, Chad Boswick, who was my age or a little bit older at the time, was gone from this world, from something that no one knew, that very few knew he had, and that was uncontrollable. And I thought about my own mortality. That's what I lost. That's what I felt I lost. I did not lose Black Panther. And I never felt that I lost Black Panther. My pain, my hurt, what was for the man, and my relationship to understanding that no human is separate from the other human, that we all have to go some kind of way. So I felt my own mortality in that. And I thought about everything I ate. I thought about all the things you put into your body. I thought about just chance and how all that swarms together in randomness and creates this crapshoot of what life can be. That's what I thought about. Now, if we objectified it and looked at it from that lens, we will stop associating this man with Black Panther. We will stop associating with him Black Panther because his legacy is beyond that.
Yeah.
21 Bridges. Have you seen it?
Yep.
It's beyond that. He embodied this thing for us at the time because police in this country has beaten us down, and so he became this hero, a marvel, and it was this thing for us to idolize and to see ourselves. But that's just all gloss and glitter, and it's important. Don't get me wrong, but the fact of the matter is, the real importance of this is to make sure that you get checked, to make sure that you try to stay as healthy as possible as a black man. That's the message. That is 100% what we should take from this. Not that, oh my God, no one else can be Black Panther. That's bullshit. And I'm gonna just say it because we need to understand that as black men. You know what? His life is not here anymore. It's gone. His legacy is here. But his family is not thinking about who he was as Black Panther. They are not thinking about that at all.
Right.
They're thinking about what they lost as
brother, husband, son.
Exactly.
Whatever,
And
yeah.
we should relate to that more than anything else. That's our humanity. But if we just relate to him as being Black Panther, then we've lost who he really was.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, the only reason why he was able to play
phenomenal.
Black Panther in the beginning was because of who Chadwick was.
Yeah.
Black Panther in the MCU was because Chadwick was who he was in this world. So that's the most important thing. That role of Black Panther can be filled, and ultimately it should be filled as a lesson to us that these are characters that reflect who we are as individuals, to teach us a lesson and nothing more. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, what you said is absolutely correct. And one thing that people need to understand is that whoever was that commented, is that Andy Whitfield was not as renowned, whatever, that's fine. But Andy Whitfield in season 1 of 13 episodes played the role of Spartacus longer than Chadwick Boseman did as T'Challa. Because understand, he had one movie that was 2 hours. He played in 2018. He played in Captain America Civil War. That was another 2 hours. So we're at 4 hours. He had maybe 30 minutes in Avengers Endgame and another 30 minutes in
it's actually much less than that. When you look, I've seen the stats on it. Chadwick Boseman's total screen time over all of those films is less than most of the actors in the MCU,
maybe
including Ant-Man.
Chadwick Boseman maybe had put in grand total of 6 hours of screen time maximum in this role of T'Challa. Andy Whitfield, God rest his soul, put in 13 plus hours. Okay, so if they can recast somebody who put in twice as much time in a role, then the character of T'Challa can also be recast. And one final thing, they need to be able to separate the role from the person, the man, 100%. The real life actor.
As they do with literally everybody else.
But see, that's the problem. And I'm gonna say, look, we are, especially in America, in this North American wilderness, like we are emotional creatures. Black people, we like how we feel carries us. It dictates our actions, and a lot of time we're not rational. We are not rational. We are building off of emotion. We're responding. We're reacting off emotion. I mean, look, we need to sit down and read the 48 Laws of Power, and we need to understand. We need to get more rational to really grab hold of our identity. I didn't get a chance to read that. I'm sorry. Can we get that back up?
I agree. This is Mike Carson. He says, I agree he can and will be recast. I just think it's too soon, and that's why I decided as such.
He died 2 years ago.
It's one
and
of
that's fine. That's fine. He doesn't have to be in Black Panther 2 at all. He doesn't.
No, he does not.
But you don't say, I'm going to get rid of the character and just pick somebody else. It's like not necessary. Bring him back.
Unfortunately, the MCU, and I mean, I would bet this. The MCU, they're going to not have a 616 Black Panther anymore because that's their best bet.
616 T'Challa.
616 T'Challa. That because they're hedging their bets that if we can preserve that he existed and we can keep him the way he is while still bringing in another T'Challa, let's do it. And that's what the whole Loki thing is about. The whole Loki timeline is about the idea that at the end of the day, there's going to be another Tony Stark too. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. didn't die, but there's going to be another Tony Stark that's not Robert Downey Jr.
They damn near had
and here's the thing that people need to understand who are watching and listening. There would not be a recast T'Challa movement if there was a 3 to 7 episode or 3 to 7 movie arc of the character, like we had with Tony Stark, like we had with Captain America, like we've had with Thor. The only reason why there is a recast T'Challa movement is because we've not even begun to delve into what that character means to the Marvel Universe, you know?
Yeah, they haven't scratched the surface of the
at all.
storyline.
I mean, he was gone from a third of his own movie. That movie was basically a damn Killmonger movie.
But
because Michael B. Jordan is Ryan Coogler's muse. You know what I'm saying?
Look,
and that's fine.
Don't get me started on Black Panther 1. Don't even get me started on that.
Right. But, all that aside,
I liked it, though. Don't get me wrong.
There are so many stories involving T'Challa that we could delve into and explore, which is why the character does not need to be killed off.
I do have to say this. Because this actually goes back to what's something that one of my editors recently told me. I was writing issue 2 of a script, and
what script?
That I can't say, but it's something coming out in something coming out in 2023. But they were saying to me how like issue 1 had it's approved and whatnot, and I was in issue 2, and one of the notes on it was that the protagonist, that the main character, she, like, we were losing her. Like, this didn't feel like it was her story. Like, she's there, but
It wasn't about her.
But we're not seeing the story through her lens. And I went back and I looked at it. But here's the thing: when I wrote it, I knew, I felt that, I saw it. But I'm like, it has to be this way because I need to get these other characters in this story because of the overall plot, and it has to be like this. But when they said it, and it kept being the thread without all the comments, I said, man, I have to figure out a way to make sure that this story is told through her lens, and because she's the protagonist. And that was the issue with Black Panther for me. It was that it was not 100% told through the lens of T'Challa.
Nope.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying that to say it's very easy for a writer to get caught in the plot of the story, to make sure that the plot of the story goes well, and lose the lens of the protagonist and it not be caught. As opposed to, there is a way, but you have to be willing to go back. You have to be willing to see it, to go back in and say, can I still get this plot while at the same time telling it through the lens of this character? And I went back in and I fixed it. The feedback came perfect. Done deal. Good. We're set to go now. And that was the problem with Black Panther, is that it was not
the movie
told through the lens of T'Challa the way it should have been.
Yep.
And that's so we had to contend with that going into Black Panther 2. There's this unfulfilled thing about Black Panther that we have, because he hasn't had his own story yet.
Yep.
Yeah.
He has not had his own story yet.
And that's the whole thing with the movie Black Panther 1 and the decision to apparently kill him off. We've barely scratched the surface of his intelligence. We've not dealt with his dalliance with Storm, which I feel is one of the most important Black relationships in comics. I mean, a lot of people were fan casting Storm to play alongside Chadwick Boseman, to see, okay, who would he match up well with? Or, me personally, I was like, okay, who would be a good Monica Lynn, with the anticipation of he moves away from Nakia and goes into another romantic relationship that comes from the comic books. We don't get any of that now, if what appears to be that they're going to kill off the character. And it's unnecessary.
It's
tragic. Fellas, our internet's starting to break down here. We've been here for almost 3 hours.
Wow.
So
crazy.
I appreciate you guys coming on the show. Brian, thank you very much for being here. Best of luck on Vineyard. When's the next issue of Vineyard come out?
September 7th, issue 2.
September 7th. So make sure, everyone, you go out to the stores and get Vineyard number 1 is already in the stores. Go ahead and get Vineyard number 2 as well. Also, everyone, again, we have the Black Comic Lords are doing our Milestone Comics Roundtable series. The next one we're doing is on Icon. It's been a really fun labor of love. It's been a lot of work, but it's been a tremendous labor of love to put on this Milestone series. Milestone's very close to my heart. I'm a big fan, and I really encourage you all to watch it Sunday night at 9. Here's what you can expect. Oh, well, that's not playing, so I can't play that.
I'm trying to. Yo, can we get Rodney Barnes on a Milestone book, please? Can we
get Rodney Barnes on a Blade book? That's the question.
Oh, can we get a Blade book? Seriously, like what's up?
There's a Blade book coming out in November. There's a one shot. Rodney Barnes needs to be a writer on Blade. Him and Jason Scott Alexander need to do a Blade book. That would just be so beast.
I don't understand how this is not happening.
Marvel's stupid.
I don't know how.
And Rodney's too good for them at this point.
Yeah, I mean they got him a Mandalorian.
Yeah, but he's what he's doing with Philadelphia is so above Marvel writing right now. It's just.
But that's what Marvel needs, though.
Wow, we're really losing the signal. All right.
You see what he said?
Brian, as always, it's been fun, man. Good talking to you. I really liked Vineyard. I like your, for those who don't know, Brian is also the editor for the title Nottingham, which I also read, which I enjoy. It's basically a Robin Hood story, but from the Sheriff of Nottingham's point of view, which is a very good story. I enjoy it. Look forward to Black Cotton whenever that decides to come back out. I will, of course, be picking up Vineyard when that comes out September 10th.
September 7th.
September 7th.
Yeah.
And Paul, as always, it's been fun, guys. For those of you guys and girls who've been watching us for the past 3 hours, thank you for joining us. And we will see you next time.
Peace. 2 fingers.